The vast expanse of our galaxy holds countless tales, moments etched into the very fabric of existence. While grand narratives of ancient wars and the rise of empires often fill our official histories, and some of the most profound struggles, the most pivotal turns occurred in eras shrouded by more recent memory. This documentary seeks to illuminate those crucial chapters that followed the great victory against the Galactic Empire. We delve into a period when peace was a hard-fought dream and new dangers emerged from unexpected corners. Witness the challenging rebirth of our Jedi Guardians, their evolution in the face of truly alien threats, and their valiant efforts against darkness, both familiar and utterly new, from the relentless march of an extragalactic foe that brought worlds to their knees, to the heart-wrenching trials within the most storied families. This is a meticulous examination of a galaxy striving for stability amidst chaos. We will explore the deep scars left by conflict, the enduring spirit that defied overwhelming odds, and the constant, subtle dance between light and shadow that defines the Force itself. Let us begin. Chapter 1. Shadows of the Empire. When the second Death Star was destroyed above the forest moon of Endor, many believed that the nightmare of the Empire had ended. The Emperor was dead. Darth Vader had fallen. A decisive victory had been won. For the first time in a generation, hope outshone fear. But history is rarely that simple. Though the Emperor perished in orbit, the system he commanded did not die with him. The Galactic Empire did not collapse in a single day. It teared, and what emerged from its broken pieces was something far more dangerous, a galaxy in chaos. On Coruscant, the heart of the old regime, loyalists moved quickly to prevent panic. The news of Palpatine's death was suppressed. Holonet access was restricted. Images of the destruction were erased or rewritten. The Imperial Ruling Council, a group of senior advisors and bureaucrats, attempted to maintain the illusion that the Emperor had survived. Some even claimed he had become more powerful beyond flesh. Among those who rose in the chaos was Grand Vizier Saipez's Dodge, long considered the voice of the Emperor in political matters. He declared himself the acting head of state. He had no real control over the military, but through bureaucracy and procedure, he held the capital together. For a time, his leadership was weak, but his intentions were loyal. That loyalty would not save him. In the shadows, another force moved. The Director of Imperial Intelligence, Yuuzhan Vong, began eliminating rivals. Her methods were precise: assassinations, disinformation, sudden disappearances. Those who opposed her found themselves silenced, disgraced, or dead. Within months, Yuuzhan Vong removed Pestage and took command of Coruscant. She abolished the ruling council and declared herself the Director of State. Her rule was enforced not by popular support, but by terror. While the New Republic formed from the remains of the Rebel Alliance, Yuuzhan Vong ruled the former capital like a spider in the center of a collapsing web. Her most feared weapon was hidden beneath the surface of the planet itself. Tipin, the Undercity, buried during the last years of the Clone Wars, lay a superstar destroyer. Officially, it did not exist. In reality, it had been converted into a psychological prison. Inside its corridors, political prisoners were broken, reprogrammed, and reshaped into perfect Imperial agents. Yuuzhan Vong used Lusankya not only to destroy her enemies, but to maintain the illusion that she ruled a true empire. In truth, she ruled a tomb. Beyond Coruscant, the story was no different. The death of the Emperor unleashed a wave of opportunism. Warlords emerged across the Outer Rim. Some declared themselves rightful heirs to Palpatine. Others refused to recognize his death. Admirals who once served under the same flag now launched fleets against one another. Order was gone. Only power remained. Meanwhile, the New Republic grew from rebellion into governance. Mon Mothma was named Chancellor. She declined emergency powers and refused to rebuild the Old Republic exactly as it was. The New Republic Charter emphasized planetary sovereignty, proportional representation, and civilian leadership over military command. Was not a perfect system, but it was born from experience. It would not repeat the same mistakes. Leia Organa Solo served as both senator and diplomat. She traveled between systems, speaking not only as a politician, but as a witness. She had seen Darth Vader. She had spoken to the Emperor. She had lived through the destruction of Alderaan. Her presence gave credibility to the New Republic's ideals. She was not speaking about history. She was history. General Wedge Antilles formed Rogue Squadron into an elite liberation force. Planet by planet, system by system, Rogue Squadron led the charge to reclaim worlds under Imperial control. Their campaigns freed Brental for Buro Liez, and eventually Thifera, where the vital Bacta industry had been seized by Isan Isard's agents. When Rogue Squadron liberated Coruscant, it was not with overwhelming force, but with precision. They bypassed planetary shields, exploited data leaks within the capital's defense grid, and coordinated an uprising from within. Citizens who had been silenced for decades took to the streets. The New Republic flag was raised over the Imperial Palace for the first time. Isan Isard escaped. She left Coruscant aboard Lusanki itself, tearing the ship free from its underground vault and blasting through the city. The escape caused massive devastation. Thousands died. Her departure marked the end of Imperial rule on Coruscant. The New Republic had captured the heart of the galaxy, but the body was still infected. Warlords across the Mid-Rim and Outer Rim grew stronger. Among them was Admiral Ginge, who declared himself warlord of the Empire and established a dominion known as the Iron Fist. Another, Admiral Delvardis, built the Night Hammer fleet. There was no unity among them, only ambition. And somewhere, far beyond the known galaxy, in the unknown regions, a force watched and waited. A Grand Admiral who had vanished years before began planning his return. His name was Thrawn. It would be years before he emerged. But even now, rumors of him spread like whispers in the void. The Battle of Endor did not bring peace. It brought change, and with change came chaos. The Galactic Civil War was far from over while the New Republic worked to establish its government and liberate occupied worlds. The remnants of the Empire splintered into factions that fought not only the New Republic, but one another. These warlords and admirals sought to fill the void left by the Emperor's death, often wielding vast fleets and armies. One such warlord was Admiral Ginge, known for his ruthless campaigns across the Mid-Rim and Outer Rim. His domain stretched across dozens of star systems. He styled himself the ruler of the Iron Fist, a symbol of his uncompromising will. Ginge's fleet was formidable, relying on the remnants of the Imperial Navy combined with stolen and salvaged warships. His reign of terror disrupted trade routes and endangered the fragile peace the New Republic sought to build. Meanwhile, another powerful figure emerged in the unknown regions, a mysterious sector of uncharted space. Here, Admiral Dala inherited the forces loyal to the Empire. She aimed to rebuild the Imperial war machine, focusing on uniting scattered fleets and restoring discipline to the fractured forces. Dala was a pragmatic leader. She sought to use strategy and political alliances rather than brutality alone. Among these fracturing forces was also Admiral Delvardus. Known for his creation of the Night Hammer fleet, Delvardus commanded a stealthy fast-strike force that carried out raids deep into New Republic space. His tactics were unpredictable, sowing fear among supply convoys and diplomatic vessels. Delvardus was more interested in weakening the New Republic's influence than in outright conquest. During this time, rumors circulated of a figure long thought lost. Grand Admiral Thrawn, once a brilliant tactician and feared by many in the New Republic and Imperial circles alike, vanished shortly before the Battle of Endor. His absence had created a power vacuum in the unknown regions. 4 years scattered intelligence reports hinted at his presence, quietly gathering forces, developing new technologies, and preparing to return to the galaxy's stage. His plans remained shrouded in mystery, but his reputation alone caused unease throughout the sectors, while the warlords carved up territory and fought among themselves. The New Republic expanded its reach with measured diplomacy and military campaigns. The liberation of key planets such as Brental IV and Berolius demonstrated the Republic's growing strength. These victories disrupted the Empire's supply chains and denied warlords access to vital resources. Rogue Squadron, led by General Wedge Antilles, became a symbol of hope and resistance during these campaigns. Their daring strikes against Imperial outposts and warlord fleets earned them widespread acclaim. The pilots of Rogue Squadron were known not only for their skill, but for their willingness to take immense risks to protect innocent lives. Members such as Taicho Selchu helped coordinate rescue missions for political prisoners held by the building remnants of the Empire, including those detained aboard the superstar destroyer Lusancia. The capture of Coruscant was a defining moment. The New Republic's liberation forces coordinated a combined orbital and ground assault. They took advantage of intelligence leaks from defectors within Imperial ranks and exploited weaknesses in the planetary shield generators. The uprising of the planet's populace, long oppressed and fearful, played a crucial role in breaking Imperial control. The Imperial Palace was seized, and for the first time in decades, the New Republic flag flew over the capital world. Though Coruscant had been liberated, Yuuzhan Vong escaped aboard Lusancia. Her disappearance left a lingering threat in the galaxy. The Lusancia itself, with its arsenal and terrifying legacy as a prison ship, became a symbol of Imperial terror long after the fall of Coruscant. Beyond direct military conflicts, the New Republic faced internal challenges. The Senate, formed from representatives across liberated systems, debated how to govern effectively. Many questioned how to balance civilian control with the need for strong defense. Some factions feared a resurgence of authoritarianism under the guise of security, while others believed that the Empire could rise again if not confronted decisively. Leia Organa Solo continued to serve both as a senator and as a diplomat. Her first-hand experience of the war's horrors gave her voice unmatched authority. She advocated for reconciliation wherever possible, encouraging former Imperial officers who were willing to abandon their old loyalties to join the New Republic's cause. Her efforts laid the groundwork for integration programs that sought to heal wounds on both sides. Meanwhile, Luke Skywalker began what would become a legendary journey. Leaving behind the battles and politics, he sought to rediscover the true nature of the Force. His quest led him to the ruins of ancient Jedi temples, the forgotten holocrons of past generations, and the dark places touched by Sith influence. Luke's vision for the Jedi was not to recreate the order of old, but to forge a new path, one that embraced balance, compassion, and understanding. The galaxy watched as Luke assembled his first students at the Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4. Among them were Kype, Durin, and Cornhorn, beings with diverse backgrounds and abilities. Luke's teaching emphasized that the Jedi must be guardians and guides, not rulers or soldiers. Yet he warned that the shadows cast by the Empire's fall had not disappeared. New threats waited in the dark, and the Jedi would need to confront them. Thus, the years following Endor were marked by struggle on many fronts: military, political, and spiritual. The New Republic's victories were hard-won. The Empire's remnants fought with desperate cunning. Keen, the Jedi sought to heal and protect a fractured galaxy. Keen, in the midst of it all, the future remained uncertain. The shattered Empire had left scars that would not heal quickly. But from those scars, new hope and new dangers would arise amidst the fractured galaxy. New factions began to rise, each with their own vision of power and control. The remnants of the Empire were no longer a united force, but a fractured collection of warlords, each claiming legitimacy. The Civil War had splintered into countless conflicts, some small, some spanning entire star systems. Admiral Ginge maintained a vast dominion known as the Iron Fist. His methods were brutal and efficient. He employed mercenaries and pirates to supplement his forces, enforcing his rule with overwhelming firepower. His stronghold in the Mid-Rim became a bastion of Imperial resistance, feared by many and opposed by the New Republic's forces. In the Outer Rim, Admiral Delverdis's Knight Hammer fleet struck fear into the hearts of supply convoys. His use of stealth tactics and hit-and-run assaults disrupted New Republic logistics and slowed the spread of stability. His forces were less numerous than Ginge's, but highly specialized and feared for their precision. Meanwhile, Admiral Dala sought to unite these factions, recognizing the danger in their disunity. She focused on diplomacy as well as military strength, aiming to rebuild a cohesive Imperial force. However, distrust among the warlords and conflicting ambitions made her task nearly impossible. Many warlords preferred to hold on to their own power rather than submit to any central authority, far beyond known space. Grand Admiral Thrawn quietly built his forces in the unknown regions. His technological innovations and tactical genius made him a formidable figure, even in exile. Rumors spread of secret shipyards, advanced weaponry, and a hidden fleet prepared to challenge both the New Republic and the fractured Empire alike. The political front. The New Republic struggled to balance its ideals with the realities of governing a galaxy still scarred by war. The Senate often found itself mired in bureaucracy and political infighting, with many senators wary of centralizing power too much. The legacy of the old Republic loomed large, and a fear of authoritarianism influenced many decisions. Leia Organa Solo played a critical role in bridging the gaps between former enemies. Her efforts at reconciliation helped to bring former Imperial officers and soldiers into the New Republic fold, easing tensions and strengthening the new government's legitimacy. Her diplomatic skills were essential in navigating the delicate politics of a galaxy still healing from decades of conflict. Meanwhile, Luke Skywalker's efforts to rebuild the Jedi Order met with both success and challenge. Students faced threats not only from external enemies, but also from within. As differing interpretations of the Force and the Jedi's role emerged, Luke's vision of a balanced and compassionate Jedi Order stood in contrast to the traditional dogma of the past. The Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4 became a beacon of hope, training new generations of Jedi who would serve as guardians and peacekeepers. Yet, Luke remained aware that darkness lingered. The Sith and other dark forces had not been entirely vanquished, and new threats were always on the horizon as the galaxy moved forward. It became clear that the period following the fall of the Empire was one of both hope and uncertainty. The New Republic worked tirelessly to bring peace and stability, while remnants of the old order fought to reclaim their lost power. The Jedi sought to guide the galaxy toward balance, even as shadows gathered. The saga of the Shattered Empire was far from over. The scars it left shaped the fate of countless worlds and the lives of millions. But from those scars, new stories of heroism, betrayal, and survival would emerge, continuing the timeless struggle between light and dark in the galaxy far, far away. Chapter 2: Thrawn Ascending. The return of the Empire's tactical genius. The galaxy had barely begun to mend its shattered peace following the Emperor's supposed final demise. The New Republic, still consolidating its gains and attempting to unite disparate star systems, found itself facing a challenge unlike any before. This new threat did not emerge from the predictable chaos of scattered warlords, nor from the lingering shadows of imperial tyranny on Coruscant. Instead, it surfaced from the vast, unexplored depths of the unknown regions, bringing with it a chilling, calculated brilliance that threatened to unravel everything the galaxy had fought for. Its name was Thrawn, Mithra Norawado, known throughout the galactic core as Thrawn, was a Kaisis, a species originating from the uncharted reaches beyond known space. Hai's reputation, whispered amongst intelligence circles and imperial remnants, was one of unparalleled strategic genius, unlike the crude imperial commanders who relied on brute force and terror. Thrawn understood that true victory stemmed from a profound comprehension of an adversary's culture, their art, their psychology. It's believed that, to effectively defeat an opponent, one must first understand their every nuance, seeing their strengths and weaknesses reflected in their creative expressions. This unique and terrifying insight set him apart and made him arguably the most dangerous adversary the nascent New Republic would ever encounter. Thrawn's story was shrouded in mystery. He had been encountered by Imperial forces years before the Battle of Endor, his extraordinary tactical mind quickly propelling him through the ranks. However, his alien origins and unconventional methods often clashed with the human-centric and rigid Q doctrines of Emperor Palpatine's empire. Ultimately, he was dispatched by Palpatine back into the unknown regions, seemingly to fade into obscurity. This apparent exile, however, proved to be a pivotal advantage. It allowed Thrawn to escape the internal purges and the self-destructive tendencies that consumed the Empire after Palpatine's demise. More crucially, it granted him invaluable time to meticulously construct a new power base, to gather vast amounts of intelligence on the galactic powers, and to prepare for his grand, devastating return. He cultivated a highly loyal force, trained in his unique tactical philosophy, and developed clandestine shipyards and technologies that would afford him a crucial edge. He was patient. He was thorough. He was utterly prepared. The revelation of Thrawn's reemergence sent an icy wave of fear across the New Republic. Here was an enemy who thought differently, who anticipated every countermove, and who seemed to possess an almost preternatural understanding of warfare. The military campaigns that followed would be etched into the memory of the galaxy, a testament to the fact that intellect could be a more devastating weapon than any superlaser. These were not random acts of aggression. This was a meticulously planned assault designed to dismantle the New Republic from within. Thrawn's grand strategy was not simply to conquer star systems, but to demoralize and dissect the New Republic piece by agonizing piece. He aimed to sow discord within their ranks, to undermine their confidence, and to force them to question the very foundations of their fledgling government. He understood that the New Republic, forged from a diverse and often fractious rebellion, was inherently vulnerable to internal division, exploited every political disagreement, every personal grudge, every logistical weakness with chilling surgical precision. The core worlds, once liberated, now found themselves embroiled in subtle, manufactured conflicts, diverting crucial resources and attention from the true threat. One of Thrawn's most significant strategic advantages lay in his uncanny ability to uncover and utilize long-forgotten Imperial assets. His most famous acquisition was the Katana fleet, also known colloquially as the Dark Force. This legendary armada comprised 200 dreadnought-class heavy cruisers that had vanished decades prior due to a catastrophic hyperspace malfunction, becoming a whispered legend of a lost power. Each vessel in the Katana fleet was equipped with an archaic but incredibly effective slave circuit system, allowing a single, highly trained crew to command multiple ships with unprecedented synchronization. Recovering these dreadnoughts provided Thrawn with an immediate and formidable naval force, one that could engage the New Republic's scattered fleets with overwhelming numerical superiority and devastatingly coordinated fire. The recovery of this lost fleet was a testament to Thrawn's meticulous planning and his access to deep, obscure Imperial intelligence. It symbolized his capacity to turn forgotten histories into present, undeniable threats. To further bolster his power, Thrawn employed a twisted and profoundly dangerous ally, Jaruus C'baoth, a deranged clone of a deceased Jedi Master. Jaruus C'baoth, having been imperfectly replicated and lacking the ethical guidance and rigorous training of a true Jedi, was a deeply disturbed and immensely powerful dark side practitioner. His very existence provided Thrawn with a terrifying, unpredictable weapon. Jaruus C'baoth, his abilities in the Force, though unhinged by madness, allowed him to manipulate minds, create intricate illusions, and project overwhelming telekinetic power. He served as Thrawn's enforcer, a living terror who could disrupt New Republic forces, infiltrate their most secure strongholds, and, most disturbingly, turn their own Force sensitives against them. Jaruus C'baoth, his inherent instability, however, also made him a volatile and unpredictable partner, a true double-edged sword that Thrawn, ever the master tactician, managed to wield with remarkable, though often strained, control. He represented a dark, perverted mirror image of Luke Skywalker's earnest and arduous attempts to rebuild the Jedi Order, showcasing the profound dangers of unchecked Force power and the seductive corruption of the dark side. The mere presence of this mad clone master sent shivers through the nascent Jedi ranks. The reemergence of the clone master was particularly unsettling for Luke Skywalker, forced him to confront the dark side's enduring lure and the dangerous implications of unchecked power, especially when combined with advanced cloning technology. Jaruus C'baoth's existence also highlighted the stark vulnerability of the New Republic to Force-based threats, a domain they had largely underestimated in their focus on conventional military and political reconstruction. The Jedi, few in number, found themselves facing a Force user whose power rivaled their own, but whose morality was utterly absent. Crucial to Thrawn's operations, and indeed to the very narrative of this era, was his recruitment of Mara Jade, a former hand of the Emperor. Mara Jade was a woman of immense skill, extraordinary resourcefulness, and a deeply complicated past. After the Emperor's death, her life's purpose had been violently shattered, leaving her bitter, adrift, and searching for meaning. She carried within her a deep-seated, Force-instilled directive to kill Luke Skywalker, a final, insidious command imprinted by Palpatine himself. Thrawn, with his unparalleled understanding of individuals, recognized her latent Force abilities, her immense talents as a pilot and operative, and her unique psychological vulnerabilities. He offered her a new purpose, exploiting her lingering loyalties to a structured power and her desperate desire for stability and a sense of belonging. Mara Jade swiftly became one of Thrawn's most effective and dangerous agents, executing daring infiltrations, gathering critical intelligence, and performing acts of sabotage with chilling efficiency. Her insider knowledge of Imperial procedures and her ability to seamlessly navigate both the shadowy underworld and the rarefied circles of high society made her an invaluable asset. Yet, beneath her professional facade, a profound internal struggle simmered. Her forced proximity to Luke Skywalker during various confrontations, often in high-stakes life-or-death situations, began to slowly but surely chip away at her ingrained hatred, forcing her to confront the true nature of the Force and her own identity. Her journey from the Emperor's deadliest assassin to a complex, morally ambiguous figure would become one of the most compelling narratives of the Thrawn campaign, showcasing the subtle but powerful influence of choice and the profound potential for redemption. Even in the most unlikely of individuals, Thrawn's campaigns were a relentless series of tactical masterpieces, each move designed to maximize New Republic resource expenditure and psychological impact. He launched a deceptive, devastating surprise attack on the critical Sluis Van shipyards, not with the intention of outright destruction, but to strategically cripple their repair capabilities and to steal vital components, showcasing his profound economy of force. A single action set back New Republic fleet reconstruction by months, if not years. He manipulated the peaceful, honorable people of the Nagri to serve his ends, revealing his insidious ability to turn even innocent populations into unwitting, lethal weapons. He accomplished this by exploiting their deeply ingrained sense of honor and obligation, twisting their traditions against them. He employed cloaked vessels, utilizing advanced stealth technology that the New Republic was ill-equipped to detect. He pioneered unexpected hyperspace routes and expertly used misdirection to keep the New Republic constantly off balance, forcing them to disperse their already strained forces. He rarely, if ever, engaged in direct, head-on confrontations, unless it was to his overwhelming advantage, preferring to outwit and outmaneuver his opponents. His battles were as much psychological as they were physical, designed to create confusion, fear, and internal dissent within the New Republic command structure. The New Republic, under the earnest leadership of Chancellor Mon Mothma and Princess Leia Organa Solo, found itself constantly reacting to Thrawn's every move, always a step behind. Their military, while steadily growing in numbers and experience, often lacked the centralized coordination and unified command needed to effectively counter such a singularly brilliant and cohesive mind. Admiral Akbar, a seasoned and respected veteran, found himself stretched impossibly thin, desperately attempting to anticipate an enemy who seemed to predict their every countermove with chilling accuracy. The political landscape of the New Republic, with its foundational emphasis on individual planetary sovereignty and the often lengthy processes of democratic debate, sometimes hindered swift and decisive action, a fundamental weakness that Thrawn expertly exploited to his immense advantage. He would target worlds whose senators held opposing views, forcing internal New Republic squabbles to escalate into full-blown crises. Despite his strategic brilliance and the near-unstoppable momentum of his campaigns, Thrawn was ultimately defeated, not by a grand fleet engagement or overwhelming New Republic might, but by an internal act of righteous vengeance. During the climactic and desperate battle of Bilbringi, his own Nagri bodyguard, Rock, struck him down. Rock, whose people had been manipulated, enslaved, and subtly poisoned by Imperial forces under Palpatine's command, discovered Thrawn's insidious deception regarding the Nagri's true history and their continued servitude. In a moment of absolute, burning fury and profound realization, Rock exacted justice, assassinating the Grand Admiral and plunging the Imperial remnant into immediate disarray. The sudden collapse of their brilliant leader's consciousness sent shockwaves through the Imperial command structure, leading to a swift and catastrophic defeat. Thrawn's death ended his immediate, direct threat to the New Republic, but his legacy lingered like a cold, enduring shadow. He had exposed the galaxy to the true face of strategic genius, demonstrating with horrifying clarity that a single, brilliant mind could almost bring an entire, burgeoning government to its knees. His campaigns forced the New Republic to mature at an accelerated pace, to streamline its military command, and to develop a far more cohesive and effective intelligence network. They learned, through bitter experience, to anticipate unconventional threats and to deeply understand the psychological dimension of warfare, a lesson that would prove invaluable in future conflicts. The influence of Thrawn would be felt for years, even decades. Hughes were meticulously studied at military academies across the galaxy. His name invoked with a mixture of fear and grudging respect, even by his former enemies. Even after his death, his ideas and the scattered remnants of his loyalists would continue to pose challenges, shaping the strategic landscape. The Empire, though fragmented once more, had glimpsed what it could be under truly inspired leadership. And that potent vision would continue to motivate certain dark factions, preventing a complete collapse of Imperial ideology. Thrawn had irrevocably changed the nature of galactic conflict, proving that battles were won not just with blasters and starships, but with cunning, foresight, and a profound, often terrifying, understanding of the enemy's very soul. His abrupt absence left a significant power vacuum in the unknown regions, but his indelible legend ensured that the New Republic would never again underestimate the cunning and insidious nature of its foes. The galaxy would forever remember the name Thrawn as the chilling epitome of strategic terror. Chapter 3. Dark Empire. The Emperor Reborn. The galaxy had barely begun to breathe. The New Republic had clawed its way back from the brink of destruction at Grand Admiral Thrawn's hands. Yet, an older, far more insidious darkness stirred. It was a darkness that defied death itself, malevolence that had seemingly been extinguished above Endor. The true nightmare, it seemed, had only just begun, for Emperor Palpatine, architect of the Galactic Empire and master of the dark side, found a way back. His return was not a resurrection in the traditional sense, but a horrific act of will, a triumph of Sith alchemy and technological manipulation. Palpatine had mastered an ancient Sith technique known as essence transfer, forbidden art that allowed him to project his spirit into clone bodies. Before his apparent demise at Endor, he had prepared a vast store of cloned replicas of himself on the hidden world of Byzes, a planet shrouded in the dark side, its population enthralled and drained by Palpatine's insidious presence. The first manifestation of this terrifying comeback occurred when a massive dark side surge ripped through the galaxy, shaking Force sensitives to their core. Its ominous tremor coincided with the re-emergence of terrifying Imperial forces from the deep core, forces wielding weaponry far beyond anything the New Republic had previously encountered. These were not the fractured fleets of squabbling warlords. This was a cohesive, unified, and utterly merciless Imperial remnant, driven by a renewed, chilling purpose. Palpatine's initial clone bodies were imperfect, decaying rapidly, a testament to the strain of containing such immense dark side power. This forced him to constantly seek new, more robust vessels. He operated from the shadows, manipulating events, gathering his loyalists, king, and unveiling his new instruments of galactic conquest. His return shattered the fragile sense of security the New Republic had only just begun to cultivate. The very notion of final victory at Endor became a cruel joke. The New Republic, still recovering from the Thrawn campaign, found itself unprepared for this resurrected evil. Mon Mothma, Leia, Organa, Solo, and the other leaders faced an existential crisis. How do you fight an enemy that cannot die? How do you defend against a power that corrupts the very fabric of existence? The answer, terrifyingly, lay in the Force itself and in the Skywalker bloodline. Luke Skywalker, having just begun to rebuild the Jedi Order, felt the dark presence with an agonizing clarity. He knew, instinctively, that this was the Emperor, somehow returned. The temptation was immense. He understood that to truly defeat Palpatine, he might need to confront the darkness from within, in a shocking and controversial decision that would haunt him for years. Luke made the audacious and perilous choice to feign a turn to the dark side. His intention was to infiltrate the Emperor's inner circle, to learn the secrets of his immortality, and to destroy him from within. It was a gamble of unimaginable stakes, placing his very soul at risk. He bowed before Palpatine, pledging himself as his new apprentice. The galaxy watched in horror as their hero, their last Jedi hope, appeared to embrace the very evil he had once fought to destroy. Leia, however, with her deep connection to her brother, sensed a sliver of his true intent, a flicker of light buried beneath the manufactured darkness. She held on to that hope, even as others lost faith. Under Palpatine's renewed command, the Empire unleashed horrific superweapons that dwarfed even the Death Stars in their destructive potential. The World Devastators were colossal, automated factories that consumed entire planets, processing their raw materials into new starships and war machines. They literally devoured worlds, turning vibrant ecosystems into slag and then into instruments of war. The sight of a world devastator descending upon a populated planet was a vision of pure technological terror, erasing civilizations with cold, efficient malice. Even more terrifying was the Galaxy Gun, a massive hyperspace cannon capable of firing projectiles through hyperspace to strike any planet in the galaxy. Its primary target, the New Republic capital, Mon-Cal-A-Ma-Re. The Galaxy Gun represented a new level of indiscriminate planetary destruction, a weapon designed not for conquest, but for absolute annihilation. It was a tool of ultimate despair, meant to crush all hope of resistance. The World Devastators and the Galaxy Gun brought untold devastation to the New Republic. Its populated worlds were scoured clean, entire populations wiped out. The sheer scale of the destruction threatened to break the New Republic's will to fight. The planet-wide destruction of Mon Calamari, a vibrant and vital world that had provided the backbone of the Rebel Alliance's fleet, sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Its destruction was a symbolic blow, a clear message from the Reborn Emperor that no world, no matter how cherished or well defended, was safe from his wrath. The cries of billions echoed through the Force, testament to the Emperor's boundless cruelty. Leia Organa Solo, now a mother to the young Jedi twins, Jacen and Jaina, found herself at the heart of this renewed conflict. She had always been a leader, a senator, a diplomat, but now her burgeoning connection to the Force became paramount. She embraced her Jedi heritage, training under her brother's initial guidance, and later honing her skills in the crucible of war. Her unique position, balancing her political duties with her growing Force abilities, made her a crucial figure in the fight against the Reborn Emperor. She was a beacon of hope, fighting not just for her government, but for the future of her children. In the galaxy, the climax of the Dark Empire conflict came with a desperate confrontation on Bizes. Luke, having played his dangerous game of deception, had learned much about Palpatine's secrets and weaknesses. He had endured unspeakable temptations, battled his own inner demons, and walked a razor's edge between light and dark. His apparent fall had allowed him to gain insights that no loyal Jedi could have achieved, yet the price was almost too high. He struggled to maintain his true self amidst the overwhelming influence of the dark side. It was Leia who ultimately brought about the redemption of Luke Skywalker. Confronting her brother, she appealed to the light within him, reminding him of his true purpose and his love for his friends and family. Her unwavering faith, her refusal to believe in his genuine fall, helped him to break free from Palpatine's mental grip. The Skywalker siblings, united in the Force, stood against the resurrected Emperor. Their combined efforts, along with the sacrifice of others and the timely intervention of Han Solo, led to the final death of Palpatine. In a desperate moment, Luke and Leia channeled the light side of the Force, overwhelming Palpatine's current clone body. The Emperor's spirit, attempting another essence transfer into the infant Anakin Solo, was thwarted by Han, who shot the intended clone vessel. Palpatine's consciousness, unable to find a new host, was irrevocably shattered, consumed by the Force itself. This time, the death felt final, absolute, a true end to his reign of terror. However, Palpatine's return had left lasting scars and spawned new, dangerous offshoots of his dark empire. The Emperor's Shadow Guard and other elite forces, fanatically loyal to the reborn Palpatine, continued to operate even after his final demise. These were not just stormtroopers. They were Force-sensitive enforcers, dark side adepts, and technologically augmented warriors who carried out the Emperor's will with chilling efficiency. They hunted down Jedi, suppressed dissent, and attempted to continue the brutal legacy of their master. Their presence ensured that the shadow of Palpatine would linger for years to come, a constant reminder of the dark side's resilience. Leia's role as a leader evolved profoundly during this era. Not only did she embrace her Jedi destiny, but she also solidified her position as a central figure in the New Republic's political landscape. She became a powerful advocate for peace and stability, using her Jedi insights to guide her diplomatic efforts. Her compassion and strength inspired a galaxy that had been plunged into despair. She understood that defeating Palpatine was not merely a military victory, but a spiritual one, requiring a deep commitment to the light and to the values of justice and freedom. The Dark Empire conflict forced the New Republic to confront the true nature of evil. It taught them that death was not always the end, that some forms of darkness could transcend even that finality. It highlighted the terrifying power of the dark side and the immense responsibility that came with wielding the Force. The galaxy learned that eternal vigilance was required, and that the struggle between light and shadow was a constant, evolving conflict. The events reshaped the lives of the Skywalker and Solo families, deepening their commitment to the Jedi path and solidifying their roles as guardians of the fragile peace they had fought so hard to establish. The threat of the Emperor had been neutralized, but the lessons of his return would forever echo through the Force, a grim warning against complacency. Chapter 4: Jedi Reborn, New Order, and the Rise of the Solo Legacy, with the shadow of Palpatine finally banished. A fragile but undeniable dawn began to break across the galaxy. The New Republic, battered but not broken by the relentless onslaughts of Thrawn and the Reborn Emperor, could now, at long last, turn its attention to a more fundamental need: the restoration of hope and balance to the Force. This monumental task fell to Luke Skywalker, the last surviving Jedi Knight of the old order and the architect of a new beginning. He understood that simply defeating the Empire was not enough. The galaxy needed spiritual guidance, return of the Guardians who had once upheld peace and justice for millennia. Luke's vision for a rebuilt Jedi Order was not a mere recreation of the past. He recognized the flaws that had led to the old Jedi Order's downfall: its rigid dogmatism, its detachment from the living Force, its adherence to strict, often unyielding rules that sometimes stifled compassion and personal connection. He sought a more flexible, more emotionally attuned path, one that embraced the full spectrum of life and the Force, rather than fearing it. His philosophy converged sharply from the old ways, emphasizing that Jedi could have attachments, could marry, and could experience the full range of human or alien emotion, as long as they remained disciplined and committed to the light. This new philosophy aimed to prevent the very fear of attachment that had contributed to the fall of Anakin Skywalker and the rise of Darth Vader. The sacred site chosen for this momentous endeavor was Yavin 4, the lush jungle moon that had once housed a hidden rebel base amidst ancient Massassi temples, permeated with the echoes of both light and dark side history. Luke established the Jedi Praxium. This academy was to be a beacon, a sanctuary where Force-sensitive individuals from across the galaxy could come to learn, to grow, and to understand their place in a Force-rich universe. Students arrive from diverse backgrounds, each carrying their own histories, their own burdens, and their own unique connection to the Force. Luke personally oversaw their training, blending traditional Jedi techniques with his own intuitive understanding, fostering individuality and encouraging questions. Among the first, its most prominent of Luke's students were Kype Durran and Corran Horn. Kype Durran was a young man deeply touched by tragedy, a survivor of Imperial oppression with a powerful, almost raw connection to the Force. His intensity and his direct experience with suffering made him a formidable, sometimes volatile, Force user. Karan Horn, on the other hand, was a former Corellian security force officer, a highly skilled investigator and pilot with a more grounded, pragmatic approach to the Force. He initially struggled with the spiritual aspects of Jedi training, preferring logic and tangible evidence, but his dedication and his inherent moral compass eventually guided him toward a profound understanding of the Force. These early students represented the diverse and often challenging individuals who would come to shape the new Jedi Order. The early years of the Praxium were marked by both profound breakthroughs and immense trials. One of the most significant challenges came from within the Order itself, centered around Kype Durin. His raw power, coupled with his deep-seated anger at the Empire's injustices, made him susceptible to dark influences. He was manipulated by the lingering spirit of Exar-Kun, an ancient Sith Lord trapped within the temples of Yavin 4. Under Exar-Kun's corrupting influence, Kype Durin briefly fell to the dark side, becoming a destructive force and wielding a terrifying super weapon, the Sun Crusher. The Sun Crusher is a devastating prototype starfighter, small and virtually indestructible, designed to fire resonance torpedoes capable of causing stars to go supernova. Kype Durin, under the influence of Exar-Kun, used this weapon to annihilate entire star systems, wiping out billions of lives in a horrifying display of uncontrolled power. This catastrophic event forced Luke to confront the profound dangers of unchecked forceability and the lingering influence of the dark side, even within his own students. It was a stark reminder that the battle for balance was not merely against external enemies, but a constant struggle within oneself. Luke, despite the heartbreak, refused to give up on Kype Durin, ultimately managing to free him from Exar-Kun's grip and guide him back to the light, though the scars of his actions would forever remain. The incident deeply informed Luke's teaching methods, emphasizing self-control and the dangers of allowing emotion to dictate actions. Another pivotal journey during this period was the slow but inexorable transformation of Mara Jade. Having been manipulated by Thrawn and still carrying Palpatine's insidious command to kill Luke Skywalker, Mara's path was fraught with internal conflict. She found herself repeatedly crossing paths with Luke, often initially in adversarial roles, but circumstances forced them to cooperate. Through these shared trials, Mara began to see Luke not as her destined enemy, but as a complex individual committed to good. The deeply ingrained hatred began to dissolve, replaced by respect, then by grudging camaraderie, and eventually by love. Her Force abilities, once used for assassination and espionage, began to shift, guided by her evolving moral compass. Her journey from the Emperor's hand, an assassin for the dark side, to a skilled, independent Force user, and ultimately to a powerful Jedi Knight, is a testament to the transformative power of redemption and choice. Her unique perspective, forged in the fires of the Empire, brought a pragmatic and sometimes cynical, but ultimately loyal strength to the burgeoning Jedi Order. While Luke focused on rebuilding the Jedi, the New Republic was simultaneously securing its political future, guided by Chancellor Mon Mothma and the steadfast Leia Organa Solo. Leia, having embraced her own Force heritage, became a vital bridge between the spiritual and political leadership of the galaxy. It was during this period that the Han and Leia's children truly began to emerge as central figures in the galactic narrative. Jacen, Jaina, and Anakin Solo, born amidst the chaos of a galaxy still at war. These three Force-sensitive children represented the future of the Skywalker bloodline, and indeed, the future of the Jedi. Jacen and Jaina, twins with a profound connection to each other and the Force, quickly showed immense aptitude. Jacen was introspective, philosophical, and deeply attuned to the nuances of the Force, often seeking understanding beyond mere power. Jaina was pragmatic, fiercely independent, and a natural pilot, embodying the daring spirit of her father and the Force sensitivity of her mother and uncle. Anakin Solo, the youngest, possessed an incredibly raw and powerful connection to the Force, reminiscent of his namesake, the original Anakin Skywalker. Their upbringing was unique, a blend of traditional New Republic values and the nascent teachings of Luke's new Jedi Order. They represented the hope for a balanced future, a generation raised in an era striving for peace. As these young Force sensitives matured, the Jedi began to confront their place in a modern galaxy. This was not the ancient Republic, where Jedi served as generals and peacekeepers with unquestioned authority. The New Republic was a democracy, wary of centralized power, and the Jedi were a newly re-emerged, often misunderstood order. Luke emphasized that the new Jedi would be guardians and counselors, not rulers or soldiers. Their role was to protect the weak, mediate disputes, and serve the Force, operating within the framework of the New Republic, not above it. This required delicate diplomacy and a careful balance of power. The reestablishment of the Jedi Order was a slow, arduous process. There were philosophical debates, internal struggles, and constant threats from those who feared or sought to corrupt the Force. The Jedi were few in number, constantly challenged by remnants of the Empire, dark side, cults, and new, unforeseen dangers emerging from the galaxy's hidden corners. Each new student, each new crisis, refined Luke's vision and tested the resilience of the burgeoning order. The experiences with Kype Durran and the Sun Crusher, the complexities of Mara Jade's redemption, and the growing Force potential of the Solo children all contributed to a living, evolving philosophy for the new Jedi. The Jedi Praxium on Yavin 4 became a symbol of this new hope. It's a place where the light was nurtured and protected. It was a far cry from the glittering temples of Coruscant in the Old Republic, embodying a more humble, more grounded approach. Luke's students were taught not just lightsaber combat and Force techniques, but also empathy, self-awareness, and critical thinking. They were encouraged to engage with the galaxy, to understand its peoples, king, and to act with compassion rather than rigid adherence to dogma. This era marked a profound shift. The Jedi were no longer relics of a forgotten age, but active participants in the galaxy's reconstruction. Luke Skywalker, burdened with the immense responsibility of rebuilding what war had destroyed, tended the flickering flame of the light, ensuring it would grow into a guiding beacon for future generations. The rise of the Solo children, destined to be powerful Force users, intertwined the fate of the Skywalker legacy with that of the New Republic, ensuring that the struggle for balance would continue through the very heart of the galaxy's most iconic family. Their journey had just begun, and the galaxy watched, hopeful yet uncertain, as the light of the Jedi began to shine anew. Chapter 5: Crimson Tides, the Crimson Empire, and the final purge of the Imperial Guard. The galaxy had endured the grand campaigns of Thrawn, survived the terrifying return of Palpatine, and seen the light of the Jedi rekindled. Yet, peace remained a distant dream, a whisper on the galactic winds. For even in death, the Emperor's influence lingered, not just in the dark side, but in the echoes of his personal power, specifically within the ranks of his most elite, its most loyal servants, the Imperial Royal Guard. These crimson-clad warriors, chosen for their unwavering devotion and exceptional combat prowess, were the living symbols of Palpatine's iron rule. With his final demise, a profound schism tore through their ranks, leading to a bloody, honor-bound conflict that would stain the galaxy red once more when the Emperor fell, presumably for the final time during the events surrounding the Dark Empire. A handful of his royal guards were not at his side. They had been on assignments, overseeing critical Imperial operations or protecting key assets. Among these survivors were two prominent figures, Kir Kanos and Karna Jax. Both were exceptional warriors, steeped in the strict doctrines and brutal training of the Royal Guard. Their loyalty had been absolute, forged in the fires of discipline and indoctrination. But now, without their master. Their paths diverged violently. The core of the Imperial Royal Guard schism was a clash of ideology and honor. Akana, Jox, the Emperor's death meant a power vacuum to be exploited. Cox believed that the Guard's true loyalty was not to Palpatine's ghost, to the perpetuation of the Imperial ideal, even if it meant seizing control through cunning and betrayal. He saw an opportunity to purge what he considered to be the weak and to reshape the Imperial remnants in his own image, consolidating power under a new, ruthless authority. He gathered loyalists who shared his vision, aiming to destroy any who clung to the old. Now defunct chain of command, Kir Kanos, however, was driven by a profoundly different, more ancient code of honor. For him, the Emperor's personal guard meant absolute, unyielding loyalty until the last breath. The Emperor was dead, and in his eyes, any attempt to usurp his authority or betray his final wishes, even from within the Guard itself, was the ultimate dishonor. He believed that the only honorable path was to avenge the Emperor's death and to eliminate anyone who claimed to be the Emperor's successor without true legitimacy. Or worse, who betrayed the very essence of the Guard's sacred oaths. Him, Karna Jox, was not a leader, but a traitor to their sacred order. This ideological divide ignited a brutal, covert war within the remnants of the Imperial Royal Guard. What had once been the Emperor's ultimate weapon became a self-consuming fire. Assassinations, desperate duels, and pitched battles erupted in secret locations across the galaxy as former comrades turned their crimson blades against one another. This was not a war for territory or resources, but a deeply personal, visceral conflict driven by conflicting interpretations of honor and loyalty. It was a final, bloody purge of the Emperor's most loyal elite, the New Republic, still grappling with its own internal challenges and the lingering threats of other Imperial warlords. Watched this internecine conflict with a mix of apprehension and cautious optimism, while the infighting weakened Imperial power generally. The sheer lethality of the Royal Guards made any direct intervention exceedingly dangerous. They understood that these warriors, even in their fractured state, were among the most dangerous individuals in the galaxy. Their unique skills and fanatical devotion meant that their struggle, though internal, had galactic implications. The outcome of this bloody schism would determine what kind of Imperial threat, if any, might emerge from the shadows of the Emperor's final legacy. Leia Organa Solo, now a mother to the young Jedi twins, Jacen and Jaina, found herself at the heart of this renewed conflict. She had always been a leader, a senator, a diplomat, but now her burgeoning connection to the Force became paramount. She embraced her Jedi heritage, training under her brother's initial guidance, and later honing her skills in the crucible of war. Her unique position, balancing her political duties with her growing Force abilities, made her a crucial figure in the fight against the Reborn Emperor. She was a beacon of hope, fighting not just for a government, but for the future of her children and the galaxy. The climax of the Dark Empire conflict came with a desperate confrontation on Baiz's Luke. Having played his dangerous game of deception, had learned much about Palpatine's secrets and weaknesses. He had endured unspeakable temptations, battled his own inner demons, and walked a razor's edge between light and dark. His apparent fall had allowed him to gain insights that no loyal Jedi could have achieved. Yet, the price was almost too high. He struggled to maintain his true self amidst the overwhelming influence of the dark side. It was Leia who ultimately brought about the redemption of Luke Skywalker. Confronting her brother, she appealed to the light within him, reminding him of his true purpose and his love for his friends and family. Her unwavering faith, her refusal to believe in his genuine fall, helped him to break free from Palpatine's mental grip. The Skywalker siblings, united in the Force, stood against the resurrected Emperor. Their combined efforts, along with the sacrifice of others and the timely intervention of Han Solo, led to the final death of Palpatine. In a desperate moment, Luke and Leia channeled the light side of the Force, overwhelming Palpatine's current clone body. The Emperor's spirit, attempting another essence transfer into the infant Anakin Solo, was thwarted by Han, who shot the intended clone vessel. Palpatine's consciousness, unable to find a new host, was irrevocably shattered, consumed by the Force itself. This time, the death felt final, absolute, a true end to his reign of terror. However, Keena's return had left lasting scars and spawned new, dangerous offshoots of his dark empire. The Emperor's Shadow Guard and other elite forces, fanatically loyal to the reborn Palpatine, continued to operate even after his final demise. These were not just stormtroopers. They were Force-sensitive enforcers, dark-side adepts, technologically augmented warriors who carried out the Emperor's will with chilling efficiency. They hunted down Jedi, suppressed dissent, and attempted to continue the brutal legacy of their master. Their presence ensured the shadow of Palpatine would linger for years to come. It's a constant reminder of the dark side's resilience. Leia's role as a leader evolved profoundly during this era. Not only did she embrace her Jedi destiny, but she also solidified her position as a central figure in the New Republic's political landscape. She became a powerful advocate for peace and stability, using her Jedi insights to guide her diplomatic efforts. Her compassion and strength inspired a galaxy that had been plunged into despair. She understood that defeating Palpatine was not merely a military victory, but a spiritual one, requiring a deep commitment to the light and to the values of justice and freedom. The Dark Empire conflict forced the New Republic to confront the true nature of evil. It taught them that death was not always the end, that some forms of darkness could transcend even that finality. It highlighted the terrifying power of the dark side and the immense responsibility that came with wielding the Force. The galaxy learned that eternal vigilance was required, and that the struggle between light and shadow was a constant, evolving conflict. The events reshaped the lives of the Skywalker and Solo families, deepening their commitment to the Jedi path and solidifying their roles as guardians of the fragile peace they had fought so hard to establish. The threat of the Emperor had been neutralized, but the lessons of his return would forever echo through the Force, a grim warning against complacency. This brutal internal conflict among the Royal Guard would become known to history as the events encompassed by the Crimson Empire. It was a narrative of vengeance, survival, and the profound, often tragic, meaning of loyalty in a galaxy without its absolute ruler. Kir Kanos, a solitary figure driven by his strict code, relentlessly pursued Carnajox, viewing his former comrade as the ultimate betrayer. His quest for vengeance led him through the darkest corners of the Imperial underworld, exposing layers of corruption and ambition that had festered within the Empire's highest ranks long before its fall. The duels between Kanos and Jox were legendary, showcases of unparalleled combat skill. Each warrior, a master of the Force-infused fighting style unique to the Royal Guard. Their conflict was a testament to the fact that even without a throne, the legacy of a tyrant could still fuel devastating wars. Meanwhile, beyond the internal struggles of the Royal Guard, Galaxy continued to contend with the rise of other powerful warlord factions, each attempting to fill the immense vacuum left by Palpatine's death. Among the most prominent and dangerous was Admiral Dala, a brilliant but ruthless strategist. Dala had been frozen in stasis by Grand Moff Tarkin prior to the Galactic Civil War, only to be unfrozen decades later. She emerged with an intact, powerful fleet and a singular, terrifying vision to restore the Empire through overwhelming military might and brutal efficiency. She launched devastating raids against New Republic targets, demonstrating a terrifying capacity for destruction and a complete disregard for civilian casualties. Her relentless attacks often caught the New Republic off guard, reminding them that the Imperial threat was far from over, in contrast to Dala's brute force approach. Another figure, Grand Admiral Gillet Pellaeon emerged as a voice of reason and pragmatism within the fragmented Imperial remnant. Pellaeon was a seasoned veteran, loyal to the ideal of the Empire, but not blinded by fanaticism. He recognized the futility of the constant infighting among warlords and the diminishing returns of brutal, uncoordinated attacks against the growing New Republic. He understood that for the Empire to survive in any meaningful form, it needed unity, discipline, and a coherent strategy. His efforts to unify the Empire were arduous and often met with fierce resistance from power-hungry rivals. He believed in strategic retreats, resource management, and long-term planning, stark contrast to the reckless abandon of many warlords. The attempts to unify the Empire were fraught with betrayal and internal strife. Warlords like Zinj and Delvardis continued to operate independently, their ambitions often clashing with each other as much as with the New Republic. Pellaeon found himself fighting a two-front war against the New Republic and against the chaos within his own ranks. He painstakingly worked to gather what remained of the legitimate Imperial fleet, to restore discipline, and to establish a chain of command that transcended individual egos. He brokered fragile alliances and leveraged his immense tactical experience to defeat or neutralize rival Imperial commanders who refused to cooperate. His vision was a unified, smaller, but stronger Imperial force, capable of enduring in a galaxy now dominated by the New Republic. A defining moment in Pellaeon's campaign for Imperial unity was the Battle of Verinda. This was a pivotal engagement, where Pellaeon demonstrated his strategic brilliance, outmaneuvering a combined force of New Republic and rogue Imperial elements. He utilized classic Imperial tactics, adapted with subtle innovations, to achieve a decisive victory that solidified his position as the de facto leader of the cohesive Imperial remnant. The battle was a stark demonstration that Imperial military might, when wielded by a truly capable commander, was still a formidable force. It sent a clear message to both the New Republic and the squabbling warlords. Pellaeon was a force to be reckoned with, capable of bringing order to the chaos. The successful consolidation under Gillet Pellaeon eventually led to a slow, almost imperceptible shift in the nature of the galactic conflict. The constant, brutal warfare that had plagued the galaxy since Endor began to abate. Yon, recognizing the limits of the Imperial remnant's resources and the strength of the established New Republic, initiated a series of diplomatic overtures. These were not acts of surrender, but pragmatic efforts to establish a lasting peace, or at least a stable coexistence with their former enemies. He understood that continued endless war would only lead to the utter destruction of what little remained of the Empire. This culminated in the gradual truce between the Empire and New Republic. It was a long, painstaking process, fraught with mistrust and the echoes of decades of bloodshed. Leia Organa Solo, with her unparalleled diplomatic skills and her commitment to healing the galaxy, played a crucial role in these negotiations. She recognized the necessity of ending the perpetual conflict and saw the potential for a stable, albeit uneasy, peace with a unified and rational Imperial remnant under Pellaeon's command. This was not a victory for the Empire, but an acknowledgement of its continued existence as a diminished but defined political entity. The truce was codified in the Pellaeon-Gavrisum Accords, a series of agreements that established clear borders, disarmament protocols for certain weapons, and a framework for future diplomatic relations. The Imperial remnant under Pellaeon ceded vast swaths of territory, acknowledged the New Republic's sovereignty, and agreed to significant limitations on its military power. In return, the New Republic recognized the Imperial remnant as a legitimate, if small, power, and agreed to cease aggressive military action against its defined borders. This landmark agreement brought an official end to the Galactic Civil War, though localized conflicts and lingering resentment would persist. For years, the crimson tides of vengeance and loyalty had finally receded, leaving behind a new, uneasy landscape. The Royal Guard's internal purge, the rise of Dala's destructive campaigns, and Pelion's pragmatic unification had all contributed to this new reality. The galaxy had learned a bitter lesson that even the shadows of tyrants carried legacies of vengeance, and that the fight for peace was a continuous, evolving struggle, sometimes requiring reconciliation with former enemies. The era of the Grand Admirals and the Emperor's direct agents was drawing to a close, placed by a more stable, albeit still tense, dynamic between the New Republic and the disciplined, but vastly diminished, Imperial remnant. The path ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a generation, the main antagonists of the Galactic Civil War had laid down their arms. Chapter 6: The New Sith Order. Dark side cults in the shadow of the past. The galaxy had collectively breathed a sigh of relief. The tyrannical grip of the Empire had been broken. The strategic genius of Thrawn had been defeated, and even the horrifying return of Emperor Palpatine had been definitively ended. A fragile peace had blossomed, allowing the New Republic to steadily consolidate its power and the fledgling Jedi Order to begin its quiet rebuilding. Yet, the dark side of the Force, a primordial, corrosive energy, doesn't simply vanish with the death of its most powerful proponents. Like a noxious gas, it seeped into the vacuum left by the Emperor's demise, manifesting in new, insidious forms. This period saw the rise of diverse dark side cults, desperate individuals seeking power in the Force's shadows, and the chilling, whispered reemergence of what some would call a new Sith order. Born not from a lineage, but from a terrifying hunger for ancient power. The very concept of the Sith had been thought utterly destroyed with the deaths of Darth Vader and Emperor Palpatine. The ancient prophecy of the Rule of Two, where only two Sith Lords could exist at any given time, had supposedly ensured their ultimate self-destruction. But the vastness of the galaxy harbored forgotten secrets, long dormant evil, and countless individuals susceptible to the dark side's seductive whispers. With the Galactic Empire fragmented and the New Republic still finding its footing, no unified power was left to systematically hunt down and eradicate every lingering tendril of darkness. This allowed various dark side traditions, some genuinely ancient, others newly formed from fanaticism and opportunism, to emerge from the deepest shadows. These new dark side threats were not unified under a single Grand Master like Palpatine. Instead, they were fragmented, disparate, often competing cults and individuals, each drawing from different interpretations of ancient Sith lore, or simply driven by raw ambition. They saw power not through a cohesive military machine, but through the Force itself, through forbidden rituals, and through the discovery of long-lost artifacts and forgotten Sith worlds. Their methods were often subtle, infiltrating local governments, corrupting disillusioned individuals, preying on the fears and anxieties of a galaxy weary from decades of war. One of the most notable manifestations of this resurgent darkness were the disciples of Ragnos, dark side cult, operating in the period following the Emperor's final death, obsessed with the ancient Sith Lord Markaragnos, one of the most powerful and ruthless Sith Lords of the ancient Sith Empire. The disciples believed that by performing dark rituals and gathering potent Sith artifacts, they could somehow resurrect the spirit of Markaragnos and unleash his power upon the galaxy. Their fervent belief in this resurrection led them to undertake daring and dangerous missions, raiding archaeological sites and clashing with Force sensitives loyal to the light. Their fanaticism was absolute, and their disregard for life chilling. As they sacrificed countless beings in their dark rituals, the remnants of the Empire, though officially in a truce with the New Republic under Grand Admiral Gillet Pelion, still harbored many dark-side adepts who had served Palpatine not as Sith Lords, but as powerful Force-sensitive agents or enforcers. These individuals often called Imperial Darksiders, found themselves adrift without their emperor, but many retained their dark side abilities and their inherent cruelty. Some sought to continue Palpatine's legacy in their own twisted ways. Others simply reveled in the power they possessed. They represented a continued, insidious threat, often operating as independent warlords or manipulating local conflicts for their own gain, constantly testing the New Republic's resolve and the Jedi's vigilance. The Jedi Order, still in its nascent stages under Grand Master Luke Skywalker, found itself uniquely challenged by these new manifestations of the dark side. Unlike the overt military threats of the Empire or Thrawn, these cults often operated in secrecy, their influence spreading like a disease. Clute and his few students, including early members like Kype, Durin, and Karan Horn, were tasked not just with training new Jedi, but with discerning and confronting these subtle, insidious threats. They had to learn to operate as peacekeepers and investigators, rather than just warriors. The Force, which had once been a clear beacon against the Empire, now seemed murkier, its dark side currents flowing from many different, unexpected sources. The return of a truly organized dark side philosophy, even if fragmented, represented a critical shift, while not adhering to the rule of two. These groups collectively contributed to the perception of a new Sith order. By their aggressive pursuit of dark side power and their often violent rejection of Jedi ideals, unearthed ancient Sith holocrons delved into forbidden knowledge and sought to replicate the destructive power that had once fueled the ancient Sith empires. Their actions often led to horrific atrocities, demonstrating the corrupting influence of unchecked dark side power. The Jedi struggle against the disciples of Ronnos, for instance, often involved intense confrontations over ancient artifacts. These artifacts, imbued with the dark side energy of long-dead Sith lords, posed a grave danger to any Force-sensitive, light or dark. The Jedi found themselves in a race against time, attempting to secure these relics before they could be used to unleash unimaginable power or corrupt innocent populations. These missions were perilous, often requiring the nascent Jedi Knights to face their own inner demons and resist the insidious allure of the dark side. Adding to the complexity was the lingering influence of ancient Sith spirits and malevolent Force entities. The Force itself, still scarred by the immense conflict of the Galactic Civil War and the Emperor's dark reign, allowed these echoes of past evil to cling to existence. One such entity, the spirit of Exar Kun, an ancient Sith Lord from millennia past, continued to haunt the temples on the moon of Yavin 4, the very site of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Praxium. This spirit had previously influenced Kype Durin, demonstrating the profound danger of such lingering dark side presences. The Jedi had to learn not only to combat living darksiders, but also to cleanse locations corrupted by ancient evil, a testament to the enduring power of the Force, even beyond life and death. The presence of these diverse dark side cults also exploited weaknesses within the New Republic's fledgling political structure. Some cults gained influence by offering false promises of power or stability to desperate local leaders. Others used their dark side abilities for manipulation, sowing discord and distrust within otherwise peaceful communities. This meant the Jedi often had to work hand in hand with New Republic intelligence agencies, combining Force insights with traditional investigative methods to uncover and neutralize these hidden threats. It was a complex and often frustrating process, as the very existence of Force users remained a mystery to many in the government. The concept of a true, unified new Sith order was debated by galactic historians and Force scholars for years to come. While these various dark side groups never fully coalesced under a single, uncontested Dark Lord, their collective emergence presented a new, multifaceted threat to the galaxy's fragile peace. They were a chaotic, unpredictable force, driven by individual ambition rather than a cohesive grand plan. This made them difficult to track, difficult to understand, and often extremely difficult to defeat. Each cult, each Darksider, presented a unique challenge, requiring the Jedi to adapt their approach and temper their tactics. Luke Skywalker, as Grand Master, understood that the best defense against these new dark side cults was not just military might, but the continued rebuilding of the Jedi Order and the fostering of hope and understanding across the galaxy. He emphasized compassion, patience, and the importance of preventing individuals from falling to the dark side in the first place. He believed that the lessons learned from his own struggle with the dark side and that of his father, Anakin Skywalker, were paramount. The new Jedi were taught to confront the darkness within themselves before attempting to combat it in others, focusing on inner balance and emotional control as their primary weapons. The confrontations with these dark side cults were often intense and morally complex. The Jedi were not dealing with the clear-cut villains of the Empire, but with individuals who were often misguided, desperate, or simply seeking power in a galaxy still recovering from profound trauma. There were instances where Jedi attempted to redeem fallen Darksiders, just as Luke had redeemed his father, though not always successfully. These efforts underscored the new Jedi Order's commitment to compassion and understanding, moving beyond the more rigid and sometimes unforgiving doctrines of the old order. The period of these new, dark side threats solidified the Jedi's role within the New Republic. They became the galaxy's primary defense against the subtle incursions of the dark side, operating where conventional military forces could not. They served as spiritual guides, moral compasses, and protectors against existential threats that originated not from fleets, but from the insidious corruption of the Force itself. This era forced the New Republic to acknowledge the vital importance of the Jedi, not just as symbols of a bygone era, but as essential guardians of galactic stability. The shadow of the past is in the form of ancient Sith power, and a lingering presence of Palpatine's influence continued to cast a long pall over the galaxy. This constant struggle against emerging dark side threats underscored a fundamental truth: the Force seeks balance. And even in times of supposed light, the dark side will always find a way to manifest. The New Republic and the Jedi Order learned that eternal vigilance was not just a military concept, but a spiritual one. The galaxy was not just recovering from a war. It was in a perpetual state of balancing the scales of the Force. This period of internal dark side threats prepared the galaxy in a grim and unexpected way for the next, even greater challenge that would emerge from beyond their known stars. Chapter 7. The Yuuzhan Vong War, a Galaxy of Flame. The galaxy had, against all odds, achieved a fragile peace. The New Republic had solidified its governance, and even the Imperial remnant. Under the pragmatic leadership of Grand Admiral Gilead, Pellaeon had settled into an uneasy coexistence. The scars of the Galactic Civil War were still fresh, but a sense of hope, however cautious, permeated the star lanes. This tentative peace, however, was about to be shattered by a threat unlike any the galaxy had ever conceived. From beyond the known rim, from the voids between galaxies, came an enemy that defied all understanding: the Yuuzhan Vong. The Yuuzhan Vong were extragalactic invaders, species utterly alien in every conceivable way. They were immune to this Force, a horrifying revelation that struck at the very core of Jedi understanding and galactic defense. Their technology was entirely organic, cultivated through centuries of genetic manipulation and biological engineering. Their ships were living creatures, their weapons bioengineered parasites, their armor grown on their bodies. They considered mechanical technology, or tech, an abomination, an insult to their gods, and were driven by a fanatical religious fervor to cleanse the galaxy of all such impurities. They viewed pain as a sacrament, suffering as a path to enlightenment, and conquest as a divine mandate. Their arrival was not merely an invasion, it was an apocalypse, an existential threat to all life as known in the galaxy. The first harbingers of this unimaginable threat were subtle, almost unnoticed. Isolated incursions of strange scout ships appeared in the Outer Rim territories, followed by whispered tales of impossible ships from bewildered traders and explorers. But soon, these whispers turned into desperate screams as the Yuuzhan Vong launched their full-scale invasion. Their advance was relentless, brutal, and seemingly unstoppable. Entire star systems fell in a matter of days. Their populations either assimilated into the invaders' horrifying bioengineered constructs or utterly annihilated. The New Republic, accustomed to fighting an enemy that used familiar tactics and conventional mechanical technology, found itself utterly unprepared and strategically bewildered by this alien horror. The invaders' unique physiology and their complete detachment from the Force presented an immediate and devastating problem for the Jedi. Force powers that had turned the tide against the Empire and its dark side masters were astonishingly useless against the Yuuzhan Vong. Telekinesis could not affect their living ships. Mind tricks could not sway their unyielding minds. And even precognition struggled to glimpse their unpredictable movements, obscured by their strange nature within the Force. For the first time in millennia, Jedi faced an enemy who existed outside their fundamental understanding of the Force, rendering their most potent abilities inert and their lightsabers largely ineffective against the Vong's pen-armored bodies. This profound helplessness bred deep fear and crippling doubt among the Jedi, threatening to break their spirit and their very will to fight. The Yuuzhan Vong invasion began in earnest in the Outer Rim territories, strategically chosen for their initial, easier conquests. However, their true objective was the heavily populated and strategically vital core worlds, the very heart of the New Republic. They were not interested in political control or resource extraction in the traditional sense, as most invaders were. Their goal was complete terraforming, to reshape every conquered world into a grotesque, living reflection of their own biologically engineered homeworld, even to the terrifying extent of replacing native flora and fauna with their own terrifying bioorganisms. Worlds that had once been vibrant, living ecosystems were meticulously transformed into grotesque living battlefields, their indigenous populations enslaved, horrifically sacrificed, or simply exterminated without remorse. The scale of the invasion was unprecedented, dwarfing any previous galactic conflict. Wave after wave of living ships poured into galactic space, overwhelming New Republic defenses through sheer numbers, terrifying biological weaponry, and alien resilience. The New Republic military, though vast and experienced from the Civil War, was fundamentally designed for a different kind of war. Their starfighters, once dominant, were outmaneuvered by the agile, organic Yuuzhan Vong Coral Skipper fighters. Their capital ships were battered by the plasma-spitting Duskabear, originally Defensor, gravity-manipulating creatures that could create localized black holes to deflect energy blasts or literally pull starships apart. Piece by agonizing piece, the conventional strategies that had won the Civil War proved largely ineffective against this utterly alien enemy. Early in the war, the New Republic suffered devastating and humiliating losses. Critical strategic worlds, like the vital shipbuilding planet of Doran, fell rapidly, their orbital defense platforms and planetary shields proving utterly useless against the invaders. Relentless advance and bioengineered weaponry. The loss of Doran was not just a profound military setback, it was a psychological blow that reverberated across the galaxy. A stark demonstration that the New Republic was facing an enemy capable of striking at the very heart of their industrial and military base. Populations across the galaxy began to panic. Refugees streamed into the core worlds in unimaginable numbers, and fear threatened to fracture the hard-won unity of the New Republic, pushing it to the brink of collapse. One of the war's earliest and most profound tragedies struck the heart of the Skywalker and Solo families during the desperate evacuation of the planet Cernpittle, a world succumbing to the Yuuzhan Vong's devastating terraforming efforts. The beloved Wookiee co-pilot, Chewbacca, made the ultimate sacrifice. As a moon, controlled by a Yuuzhan Vong, Defensor plunged towards the planet, threatening to annihilate all remaining life and ships. Chewbacca selflessly ensured that his lifelong friend, Han Solo's son, Anakin Solo, reached the safety of their vessel. Chewbacca remained behind, facing the moon's descent alone, deliberately placing himself in harm's way to buy precious seconds for the others. His final roar echoed across the coms, a testament to his immense courage and loyalty, as he was consumed by the cataclysm. His death sent shockwaves of grief and despair through the New Republic, particularly devastating Han Solo, who struggled immensely with the loss of his brother in arms. It's a loss that would haunt him for years and profoundly impact his relationship with his surviving children. This heartbreaking sacrifice underscored the brutal cost of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion. Amidst this chaos and widespread despair, the Solo children, now grown into formidable, if still young, Jedi Knights, rose to unprecedented prominence. Jacen Solo, with his deep, often philosophical understanding of the Force, became a key figure in trying to comprehend the Yuuzhan Vong's unique nature, tirelessly seeking non-traditional Force solutions and insights into their biology. Jaina Solo, ever the pragmatic pilot and brilliant warrior, distinguished herself as an extraordinary starfighter ace and a sharp military strategist, leading daring raids against the invaders and swiftly earning the revered moniker, Sword of the Jedi, for her fierce effectiveness. Their youngest brother, Anakin Solo, possessed an incredibly raw and powerful connection to the Force, often pushing boundaries and taking immense risks to find ways to fight the seemingly unforce-sensitive enemy. Their parents, Han Solo and Leia Organa Solo, watched their children step into the fires of war, leading the desperate fight for a galaxy that was now undeniably theirs to defend. The New Republic's leadership struggled immensely with the unparalleled nature of the threat. Chancellor Mon Mothma, having steered the New Republic through its foundational years and its triumph over the Empire, was now forced to confront a war for galactic survival unlike any other. Her renowned diplomatic skills, honed in the political arenas of the Old Republic and the early New Republic, were often tragically useless against an enemy that did not negotiate, did not understand compromise, and only pursued conquest and utter domination. The military command, led by seasoned veterans like Admiral Akbar, found their lifetime of experience and strategic doctrines utterly challenged by an enemy whose tactics and organic technology were completely alien and unpredictable. The initial responses were often disjointed, reflecting the New Republic's democratic structure and its inherent difficulty in adapting swiftly to a truly existential, all-encompassing war. The Jedi Order, still relatively small in number, and recovering from the internal conflicts and purges of the past, found itself on the absolute front lines, fighting a desperate battle, not just for survival, but for understanding. Luke Skywalker, as Grand Master, bore the immense burden of guiding his nascent order against an enemy that defied their very understanding of the Force itself. He initiated desperate attempts to comprehend the Yuuzhan Vong's baffling force immunity, sending out recon teams and pushing his students to explore every facet of the Force in search of a weakness, an exploit, or any glimmer of insight. It was a time of immense spiritual and physical trial for the Jedi, forcing them to question their beliefs, challenge their traditions, and fundamentally adapt or face utter annihilation. The sheer scale, brutality, and alien nature of the conflict eventually led to the galaxy uniting against a common foe, a feat previously thought impossible. Even the Imperial remnant, under the pragmatic leadership of Gilad Pellaeon, K found itself facing an enemy that threatened its very existence, regardless of its imperial ideals. Recognizing the profound, shared threat to all life, the tenuous peace established by the Pelion-Gavrisum Accords began to evolve rapidly into a strategic, desperate alliance. Imperial forces, with their disciplined structure, vast resources, and advanced weaponry, found themselves fighting fiercely alongside their former enemies against the overwhelming tide of the Yuuzhan Vong. This unlikely alliance, K is forged in the agonizing fires of galactic desperation, showcased the terrifying scale of the threat, forcing former adversaries to set aside their deep-seated differences for the ultimate survival of all sentient life. The war raged for agonizing years, consuming star systems and costing untold billions of lives. The Yuuzhan Vong advanced steadily, leaving a trail of biologically altered worlds and utter desolation in their wake. They meticulously targeted vital New Republic worlds, scheming to dismantle the galactic infrastructure piece by agonizing peace. One of their most horrifying and psychologically devastating strategies involved the systematic destruction and terraforming of key New Republic worlds, not just for conquest, but explicitly to demoralize and terrorize the galaxy into submission. The loss of the planet Coruscant, the very heart of the galaxy in the New Republic capital for millennia, is perhaps the most devastating blow, a moment etched into galactic memory. Yuuzhan Vong, in a brutal demonstration of their power and their utter contempt for mechanical constructs, meticulously reshaped the Ecumenopolis into a grotesque, living temple world dedicated to their horrific gods. The once vibrant spires were replaced by organic, thorny structures, and the countless inhabitants either died in the brutal initial assault or were horrifically assimilated into the invaders' biofactories. The fall of Coruscant sent a shockwave of profound despair through the entire galaxy, signaling that no world was truly safe. Amidst the widespread despair, acts of incredible heroism and devastating sacrifice emerged from every corner of the galaxy. The Jedi, despite their persistent struggles against the Yuuzhan Vong's force immunity, played an absolutely critical role. They became inspiring leaders, strategists, and vital moral anchors for a desperate galaxy on the brink. Luke Skywalker relentlessly sought answers, exploring ancient Jedi texts and arcane Force lore to understand the true, hidden nature of their alien enemy. His tireless pursuit of knowledge led him to confront profound truths about the Force, reminding him and his students that it was far more than just a tool for combat. It was the fundamental essence of all life. The Solo children, in particular, bore an immensely heavy burden of leadership and personal loss. The war demanded terrible sacrifices, and the Skywalker Solo family, so central to the New Republic's hopes, was not spared. Anakin Solo, the youngest of the three, with his immense raw power in the Force and his courageous willingness to push the boundaries of Jedi doctrine, bravely led a crucial and incredibly dangerous mission deep into the Masa, heart of a Yuuzhan Vong world ship. His actions were instrumental in acquiring vital intelligence about the invaders' ultimate weaknesses, but they came at an unbearable personal cost. In a selfless act of profound sacrifice, Anakin Solo gave his life to ensure his mission's success, dying a hero in the defense of the galaxy he loved. His death was a profound blow, a devastating testament to the war's sheer brutality, and a source of immense, agonizing grief for his family and the entire Jedi Order. The New Republic, reeling from their devastating losses and the widespread destruction, eventually underwent a radical and necessary transformation. The sheer existential threat of the Yuuzhan Vong forced a rapid and profound restructuring of their government and military. The inherent limitations of a decentralized democracy in total existential war became painfully clear to all. A new, more unified and centralized command structure emerged, better equipped to wage total war against such an alien and relentless foe. The diverse galactic forces now including elements of the disciplined Imperial remnant and various planetary defense forces, slowly but surely began to adapt their strategies. They learned to exploit the Yuuzhan Vong's deep reliance on biological constructs, specifically targeting their living ships, vulnerable nervous systems, and strategically disrupting their bioengineered command structures. A key turning point in the protracted conflict came with the agonizingly slow but ultimately crucial discovery of the Yuuzhan Vong's mysterious connection to the Force, or rather, their profound lack thereof. It was revealed that the Yuuzhan Vong had, millennia ago, exiled themselves from their original galaxy by destroying their own homeworld, systematically severing their connection to their own Force, thereby making them Force immune in this galaxy. Chilling understanding, agonizingly gained through years of research and immense sacrifice, finally provided the Jedi with a glimmer of hope. It meant there was an origin to their immunity, and thus, perhaps, a way to exploit it, to find a weakness in their seemingly impenetrable nature. The climax of the war involved a monumental, galaxy-wide effort to finally counter the Yuuzhan Vong's unique and devastating threat. The Jedi, having painstakingly adapted their techniques and shed many of their old, rigid dogmas, began to find indirect ways to affect the invaders. They focused on disrupting their complex, organic command chains, exploiting environmental weaknesses on the terraformed worlds, and utilizing Force-sensitive non-Jedi in new, innovative ways to gain advantages. The New Republic military, now operating as the Galactic Federation of Free Alliances, launched massive, coordinated offensives that spanned multiple sectors. They developed highly specialized weaponry and cunning tactics designed explicitly to counter the organic nature of the Yuuzhan Vong, including targeted chemical agents designed to disrupt their unique biology and powerful sonic weapons that could disrupt or even incapacitate their vital dinosaurs. The final, desperate push to defeat the invaders involved a multi-pronged assault aimed directly at their main command centers in their vast terraforming efforts. The unified galactic forces, comprising countless species, courageous humans, resilient Mon Calamari, cunning Bothans, mighty Wookiees, and countless other species, fought side by side in a truly galaxy-spanning conflict. It was a war of unimaginable attrition, of desperate last stands on worlds teetering on the brink of ecological collapse, and of moments of unimaginable heroism from every corner of the known galaxy. The hard-won victory over the Yuuzhan Vong came at a truly tremendous and almost unbearable cost. Billions of lives were tragically lost. Countless worlds were irrevocably scarred or utterly destroyed. Their ecosystems permanently altered, and the entire galactic infrastructure was devastated to an unprecedented degree. The New Republic, though ultimately victorious, was forever changed by the crucible of this conflict. It emerged from the conflict as the unified Galactic Alliance, a far more centralized, pragmatic, and cohesive government, was forged in the agonizing fires of an existential war that had nearly consumed them all. The Jedi Order, too, was profoundly transformed. They had endured staggering losses among their ranks, but they had also evolved, shedding some of the rigid dogma and strictures of the past and embracing a more flexible, compassionate, and deeply interconnected approach to the Force. They learned that the Force was not just about power, but about understanding, adaptation, and a profound connection to all life in the universe. The Yuuzhan Vong War redefined the galaxy's understanding of external threats and tested its internal resilience to breaking point. It forced the various disparate factions and species to set aside their historical animosities and unite against a common, terrifying, and utterly alien enemy. It highlighted the sheer, indomitable power of adaptation, the necessity of desperate sacrifice, and the enduring spirit of life in the face of absolute destruction. The scars of the war would remain for generations, a grim reminder of the profound darkness that lay beyond the known stars. but also a shining testament to the galaxy's profound capacity for unity, heroism, and self-sacrifice. The universe had faced its ultimate test and, through immense suffering and an almost unimaginable toll, had ultimately prevailed, albeit forever changed. The invaluable lessons learned from the Yuuzhan Vong invasion would shape galactic policy, military doctrine, and Jedi philosophy for centuries to come, ensuring that the galaxy would never again be so unprepared for the unknown and the truly alien. Chapter 8. Jacen's Fall. Legacy of the Skywalker Bloodline. The galaxy had survived the unimaginable horror of the Yuuzhan Vong War, but at a devastating cost. Billions of lives were lost, countless worlds ravaged, and the very fabric of galactic society profoundly altered. The New Republic had transformed into the Galactic Alliance, a more centralized and powerful government forged in the fires of an existential conflict. The Jedi Order, though decimated in numbers, had evolved, becoming more adaptable and less dogmatic, learning hard lessons from an enemy immune to the Force. Yet, even as the galaxy began the arduous process of rebuilding, a new, insidious darkness was already taking root, not from outside invaders or lingering Imperial remnants, but from within the very heart of the Skywalker bloodline. This era would be defined by the tragic descent of Jacen Solo, a fall that would echo the dark fate of his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker, and plunge the galaxy into another devastating civil war. The seeds of Jacen's fall were sown in the crucible of the Yuuzhan Vong War. He had endured unspeakable trauma, witnessed unimaginable atrocities, and felt the deep, agonizing losses, including the sacrifice of his younger brother, Anakin Solo, while his twin, Jaina Solo, found strength and purpose in direct action and unwavering commitment to the light. Jacen became increasingly introspective, seeking deeper understanding of the Force, and, critically, of the nature of pain and sacrifice. He embarked on a profound 5-year journey of extragalactic exploration and Force study following the war's end. This journey, intended to heal and to find new perspectives on the Force, instead exposed him to dangerous philosophies and pushed him towards a path he believed was necessary, however dark. During his travels, Jacen encountered various Force traditions from distant corners of the galaxy, some benign, others morally ambiguous, and a few outright dangerous. He delved into the intricacies of esoteric Force techniques, pushing his abilities to their very limits. Crucially, he learned to embrace pain and to manipulate the Force in ways that blurred the lines between light and dark. He became convinced that true mastery of the Force required understanding and command over both its aspects, a philosophy dangerously close to that of the ancient Sith. He believed that only by experiencing the full spectrum of the Force, in its darkest corners, could he truly protect the galaxy from future threats. Upon his return, Jacen was a changed man. His demeanor was colder, his eyes held a calculating intensity, and his connection to the Force was undeniably immense, but unsettlingly different. He was no longer the compassionate, idealistic Jedi his family remembered. He quickly established himself as a prominent figure within the Galactic Alliance Defense Force, leveraging his Jedi abilities and tactical genius to achieve swift, decisive victories against lingering post-war threats. He became a hero, a symbol of strength and competence, but at what cost? His methods, though effective, began to show a ruthless efficiency, a willingness to employ morally questionable tactics if they achieved the desired result. He believed he was acting for the greater good, for the ultimate safety of the galaxy. But his definition of good began to twist. The galactic political landscape, post-Yuuzhan Vong War, was complex and volatile. The Galactic Alliance, still struggling with reconstruction and internal dissent, faced numerous challenges: rogue warlords, economic instability, and the lingering threat of independent systems unwilling to rejoin the centralized government. In this climate of uncertainty, Jacen Solo's decisive actions and his unwavering confidence began to appeal to those who craved order and security above all else. He was seen as the strong hand the galaxy needed, powerful force user who could cut through bureaucracy and deliver results. The turning point in Jacen's journey towards the dark side was marked by his embrace of the philosophy of unifying force theory. This theory, as he interpreted it, emphasized the force as a single, interconnected entity, where light and dark were merely different expressions of the same energy. While not inherently dark, Jacen twisted this philosophy to justify his use of increasingly extreme methods, believing that all actions, even those traditionally considered dark, could serve the greater balance if wielded for a perceived good. He rationalized his decisions, convincing himself that he was merely making the difficult, necessary choices that others were too weak or short-sighted to make. Intellectual justification became a dangerous pathway to moral relativism, blurring the clear lines between right and wrong. Jacen's influence grew within the Galactic Alliance, particularly within the military. He began to form an unofficial power base, gathering loyalists who admired his effectiveness and shared his conviction that strict control was necessary for galactic stability. He became an instructor within the Galactic Alliance Guard, training force sensitives not just in Jedi techniques, but in his own more ruthless application of the Force. He taught them to suppress emotion, to make cold, calculated decisions, and to view perceived threats with absolute impartiality, even if it meant extreme measures. The Jedi Order, led by Grand Master Luke Skywalker, watched Jacen's evolution with growing concern. Luke, having faced his own temptations with the dark side, and having witnessed his father's tragic fall, recognized the subtle, insidious signs of Jacen's descent. He attempted to guide his nephew to remind him of the true path of the Jedi, of compassion, and of the dangers of believing one knows what is best for the galaxy above all else. However, Jacen had become increasingly isolated, convinced of his own unique destiny and the absolute righteousness of his evolving philosophy. He saw Luke's warnings not as guidance, but as weakness or a lack of true understanding. The first major public sign of Jacen's radicalization came during the Corellian Crisis. A dispute between the Galactic Alliance and the Corellian system escalated into open conflict, fueled by political manipulation in the presence of hidden interests. Jacen Solo, now a Galactic Alliance security advisor and field commander, took increasingly authoritarian measures against the Corellians, employing brutal tactics to suppress dissent and force compliance. He ordered the systematic targeting of civilian infrastructure, justified as necessary to break the Corellian will to resist. These actions shocked the galaxy and deeply disturbed the Jedi, who saw their principles being openly violated by one of their own. It was during this crisis that Jacen's relationship with his family, particularly Han Solo and Leia Organa Solo, became irrevocably strained. They recognized the cold, ruthless stranger their son had become, a stark contrast to the idealistic, empathetic boy they had raised. Han, still grieving Chewbacca's death and fiercely independent, openly defied Jacen's orders and condemned his actions. Leia, heartbroken but resolute, tried to reason with her son, appealing to his light, but found herself increasingly powerless against his chilling conviction. The family that had once stood as a united front against galactic evil was now torn apart by its own internal darkness. The deepening crisis saw Jacen Solo formally declare himself a Sith Lord, taking on the chilling mantle of Darth Sidious. This was not the rule of two, but a self-proclaimed lineage, a terrifying echo of the past, marking his full embrace of the dark side. He believed that only by wielding absolute power, by forcing order through fear, could the galaxy be truly saved from the chaos that had plagued it for so long. He saw himself as the benevolent dictator, the one who would impose stability, even if it meant sacrificing freedom and individual rights. His former title as a Jedi Knight was forever tainted, replaced by a name synonymous with galactic terror, as Darth Sidious. Jacen systematically eliminated opposition, both within the Galactic Alliance and among the Jedi. He employed a network of informants and enforcers, turning the very security forces he had helped to build against those who dared to question his authority. The galaxy watched in horror as a new empire, albeit one draped in the mantle of a benevolent protectorate, began to rise. Sidus's rule was characterized by a cold efficiency, swift and brutal justice for dissenters, and a relentless drive to consolidate power. He believed that the ends justified any means, no matter how abhorrent. The Jedi Order faced its greatest internal crisis since the rise of the original empire. One of their own, a Skywalker, had fallen to the dark side and now wielded immense power against them. This forced the Jedi to make agonizing choices. They could not stand idly by as the galaxy was plunged into tyranny, but they were deeply reluctant to engage in open warfare against a former comrade and a member of their most revered family. Grandmaster Luke Skywalker recognized that this was a war not just for the galaxy's freedom, but for the very soul of the Jedi Order and the Skywalker legacy. He knew that, to defeat Sidus, he might have to make unimaginable sacrifices. A crucial moment in Sidus's reign was his brutal use of the Force to extract information and punish dissenters, practice that horrified the Jedi. He honed his dark side abilities, becoming a master of physical and psychological torment. He believed that pain was a tool for control, and fear was the most effective motivator. His connection to the Force was undeniable, but it was a force twisted to serve his increasingly warped vision of galactic order. He was powerful, intelligent, and utterly ruthless, making him a terrifying adversary. The final confrontation against Darth Sidus became inevitable. The Jedi, led by Luke Skywalker and his twin sister Jaina Solo, reluctantly accepted that Jacen could not be redeemed. They understood that, to save the galaxy from this new tyranny, they had to confront him directly. The war against Sidus was fought on multiple fronts, a desperate struggle between the forces loyal to the Galactic Alliance's democratic ideals and those under Sidus's increasingly authoritarian grip. It was a painful, personal conflict for many, particularly the Solo family. The ultimate confrontation between Darth Sidus and the forces of the light culminated in a series of devastating battles. The tragic weight of history bore down on the Skywalker and Solo families. The legacy of Anakin Skywalker's fall loomed large, a grim prophecy that now seemed to be repeating itself with his grandson. The galaxy held its breath, witnessing another internal struggle for its very soul. The final, decisive duel occurred between Jacen Solo, now Darth Sidus, and his twin sister, Jaina Solo. This was not merely a clash of lightsabers. It was a battle, born of deep love, twisted into agonizing conflict. Jaina, having reluctantly accepted that her brother was beyond redemption, dedicated herself to stopping him. She underwent rigorous training, pushed her own Force abilities to their limit, and prepared herself for the unimaginable task of confronting her own twin. Their bond in the Force, once a source of comfort and strength, now became a conduit for their devastating conflict, a link they both exploited and fought to sever. The duel was fought with raw emotion and unparalleled skill, a brutal ballet of lightsabers, fueled by both desperation and fractured love. Jaina, understanding her brother's tactics and predicting his moves through their Force bond, fought with a clarity and resolve that Jacen, blinded by his own dark convictions, underestimated. In a moment of devastating precision, Jaina delivered the fatal blow, ending her twin brother's reign of terror. It was a victory, but one steeped in profound tragedy and irreparable personal loss for the Solo family and the entire Jedi Order. The death of Darth Sidus brought an end to his tyrannical rule, but the scars of his fall were deep and lasting. The Galactic Alliance had again endured a devastating civil war, this time caused by one of its own heroes. Trust was shattered, and the cost in lives and resources was immense. The Jedi Order faced renewed scrutiny and distrust from a public wary of Force users, especially those from the powerful Skywalker bloodline. They had been reminded, in the most painful way possible, of the ever-present danger of the dark side. Even to those born of light, the legacy of the Skywalker bloodline remained complex and deeply conflicted. It was a lineage of immense power, capable of both incredible heroism and profound darkness. Luke Skywalker continued his role as Grand Master, facing the heavy burden of his family's painful history. He understood that the fight against the dark side was eternal, and that the path to balance was fraught with peril. The events of Jacen's fall served as a stark, enduring lesson for future generations of Jedi, that power, even when sought for noble reasons, could lead to corruption, and that the greatest threats often came from within. The galaxy, forever changed by this internal strife, began the long, slow process of healing once more, but with the haunting knowledge that the shadow of the past, the temptations of the dark side, would always remain a potent force. Chapter 9. Fate of the Jedi. Secrets, Sith, and the Lost Tribe. Asterisk. In the aftermath of the Second Galactic Civil War, directly precipitated by Darth Sidus's tyranny, the Galactic Alliance sought to assign blame and restore public confidence. The burden of Jacen's crimes and the deep-seated fear of the Skywalker legacy fell heavily upon the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, despite his unwavering commitment to the light and his efforts to stop his nephew. Luke Skywalker was controversially exiled from the core worlds by the Galactic Alliance government. This was a political maneuver designed to assuage public fear and project an image of accountability, but for Luke, it was a painful and unjust decree. Stripped of his formal authority within the Alliance structure, he was nonetheless determined to understand the depths of Jacen's corruption and prevent such a tragedy from ever happening again. Luke did not embark on this solitary quest alone. His only son, Ben Skywalker, now a formidable Jedi Knight in his own right, chose to accompany him. Ben, who had deeply admired his cousin Jacen and witnessed his terrifying transformation firsthand, felt an intense personal need to understand what had driven Jacen to such darkness. Together, father and son embarked on a desperate and perilous journey to uncover the true nature of Jacen's transformation. Their quest was not merely for vengeance or justice, but for profound understanding. They delved into forbidden Jedi archives, sought out ancient foresights, and followed faint, unsettling trails across the galaxy, hoping to find answers to the pervasive dark side corruption that seemed to infect everything they touched. Their bond, already strong, was forged anew in the crucible of this shared mission, as they faced both external dangers and the haunting shadows of their family's past. Their journey was marked by a pervasive sense of growing instability across the galaxy. The peace that followed the Yuuzhan Vong War and Sidus's defeat was superficial, constantly threatened by burgeoning regional conflicts, economic collapse, and a disturbing rise in dark side cult activity. The Force itself felt unwell, rippling, with unexplained anomalies and surges that defied traditional Jedi analysis. It was as if the very fabric of existence was groaning under the weight of so much recent suffering and the unresolved darkness left in its wake. This increasing instability proved to be fertile ground for ancient evils to stir and for new, frightening alliances to begin to form in secret. The Jedi faced a foe unlike any before, the chilling unknown, as Luke and Ben pursued their investigations. Their path led them to remote, forgotten corners of the galaxy, places where the Force flowed in strange and often disturbing ways. They encountered ancient prophecies, unsettling Force visions, and whispers of powers that predated the Jedi and Sith as they knew them. Each clue drew them deeper into mysteries that had remained dormant for millennia, hinting at threats far more primordial than any they had yet faced. The galaxy's woes, it seemed, were not merely political or military. They were metaphysical, spiritual, a cosmic ailment that threatened to unravel the very nature of the Force itself. Their quest for answers was slowly revealing that the universe held secrets that even the wisest Jedi had only glimpsed. Luke and Ben's relentless pursuit of answers eventually led them to a startling and terrifying discovery: the lost tribe of the Sith. This ancient Sith faction had been stranded on the hidden planet of Kesh during the hyperspace wars, millennia before the rise of the original Sith empires known to galactic history. Cut off from the rest of the galaxy, they had evolved in isolation, maintaining their Sith traditions, their dark side powers, and their rigid caste-based society. They were a remnant of a brutal past, a living fossil of ancient Sith cruelty, utterly devoid of any contact with the rule of two or the events that had shaped the galaxy since their abandonment. Their sudden rediscovery, facilitated by a Force anomaly related to Jacen's fall, was a profound shock to the Jedi and a terrifying reintroduction of a previously unknown strain of Sith power. The Lost Tribe was led by a council of powerful Sith lords, each a master of the dark side, steeped in ancient rituals and practices long forgotten by the modern galaxy. Their philosophy was one of absolute domination, unburdened by the specific doctrines of Darth Bane's rule of two. They saw themselves as the true inheritors of the Sith legacy, untainted by millennia of external galactic influence. Their isolation had preserved their original ferocity and ambition, making them an unpredictable and incredibly dangerous force. Their re-emergence immediately added a new, terrifying dimension to the galaxy's already burgeoning Force-related crises. They sought to reclaim their place in the galaxy, beginning with subtle infiltration and manipulation. The discovery of the lost tribe of the Sith was merely the prelude to an even more terrifying revelation. Their re-emergence was linked to a deeper, more insidious threat, one that transcended the conventional understanding of dark-side users or even Sith lords. Luke and Ben, along with other Jedi and allies, soon realized that the Lost Tribe had inadvertently awakened an eldritch Force entity of immense, terrifying power. This entity, known as Abeloth, was a being from beyond the known realms of existence. It's a primordial Force demon who had long been imprisoned within the maelstrom of the Maul cluster, a chaotic nexus of black holes and gravitational anomalies. Abeloth was not a Sith, nor was she bound by mortal concepts of light or dark. She was a manifestation of chaos, a being of pure Force energy that fed on suffering and instability. Her very presence caused the Force itself to distort and ripple with madness. Her awakening unleashed a wave of terrifying Force anomalies across the galaxy, affecting Force sensitives in unpredictable and often catastrophic ways. The Jedi faced a foe unlike any before, a non-corporeal entity that could possess individuals, manipulate minds on a galactic scale, and twist the Force itself into instruments of her terrifying will. Her powers were beyond comprehension, making her an enemy that could not be fought with lightsabers or starships alone. The immediate consequence of Paula's return was a terrifying increase in Jedi struggle with madness and corruption. Many Force sensitives, both within the Jedi Order and outside it, began to experience terrifying visions, erratic behavior, and succumb to inexplicable fits of rage or despair. The Force, once a source of clarity and strength, now seemed tainted, whispering dark thoughts and driving some to the brink of insanity. Powerful Jedi found themselves battling their own minds, struggling to maintain their sanity and their connection to the light amidst the pervasive mental assault unleashed by Abeloth. This widespread psychological warfare threatened to dismantle the Jedi Order from within, forcing them to confront their own vulnerabilities. The Force itself, once seen as a unifying cosmic power, now seemed to be fragmenting under the immense strain of these ancient awakenings. The Jedi faced a multifaceted crisis, a re-emerged ancient Sith civilization in the Lost Tribe, a primordial Force entity in Abeloth, and the pervasive corruption spreading amongst Force sensitives. This unprecedented combination of threats forced the Jedi to confront the limits of their knowledge and the true depths of the Force's mysteries. They had to learn to adapt to a reality where the very Force they wielded could become a source of madness and destruction. In the midst of this escalating chaos, and distinct from the Lost Tribe, the seeds of another, more unified dark side movement were secretly being sown, though not yet fully emerged or publicly known during the initial events of Abeloth's awakening. The underlying galactic instability and the constant ebb and flow of dark side energies created a fertile environment for future, organized Sith resurgence. This refers to the eventual formation of the one Sith in secret under Darth Krayt, a figure who, though not active in the current timeline, represented a future, terrifying evolution of Sith ambition. These new movements, operating in extreme secrecy, were meticulously building their power base, learning from past Sith failures and patiently waiting for the opportune moment to strike, feeding on the galaxy's woes. Their existence, largely unknown to the Jedi at this time, has underscored the pervasive, enduring nature of the dark side, adapting and evolving with each passing era. The increasing instability across the galaxy was palpable. The Galactic Alliance, still struggling to recover from the previous wars, found itself battling not only traditional conflicts, but also inexplicable Force-related incidents, outbreaks of madness, and the subtle manipulations of both the Lost Tribe of the Sith and Abeloth. Governments teetered on the brink of collapse. Trade routes became dangerous, and public trust in both the Jedi and the Galactic Alliance waned. The very concept of order seemed to be unraveling, replaced by a growing sense of dread and powerlessness. The Jedi, once seen as saviors, now faced suspicion, their mysterious ways seemingly unable to stem the tide of madness and corruption. Luke and Ben's quest became intertwined with a broader galactic struggle. They sought not only to understand Jacen's fall, but also to find a way to contain or defeat Abeloth. Their journey led them to ancient Force sites, forgotten worlds, and even into the deeper, stranger realms of the Force itself. They encountered powerful, morally ambiguous Force users who offered cryptic advice, and faced desperate situations that pushed their own Force abilities to their absolute limits, the boundaries of what they thought possible. What they thought they knew about the Force were constantly being shattered. The Jedi Order, meanwhile, under the interim leadership of various masters, struggled to hold itself together. They implemented new protocols to identify and quarantine Force sensitives afflicted by the madness, and tirelessly worked to understand the source of the Force's corruption. This period was one of profound introspection for the Jedi, forcing them to question long-held beliefs and to reevaluate their approach to the Force and their role in the galaxy. They learned that the greatest threats were not always obvious, and that sometimes the unknown was the most terrifying adversary of all. The conflict with Abeloth and the Lost Tribe of the Sith brought the Jedi to the brink of spiritual collapse. The sheer scale of the cosmic forces involved, and the insidious nature of the madness affecting Force sensitives, tested their resolve like never before. The lines between allies and enemies blurred as individuals succumbed to Abeloth's influence, turning against their friends and families. The very air seemed to crackle with dark energy. A pervasive sense of despair settling over many Force sensitives across the galaxy. This was a war, not just for physical territory, but for the very minds and souls of those connected to the Force. The desperate effort to contain Abeloth and neutralize the Lost Tribe of the Sith required the Jedi to form uneasy alliances and make difficult, morally ambiguous choices. They were forced to cooperate with individuals and groups they once would have considered too dangerous or too morally compromised. The threat was so immense that old rivalries and prejudices had to be set aside for the sake of galactic survival. Luke and Ben Skywalker, having gained unique insights into the nature of the dark side and Abeloth's origins, became central figures in planning the counteroffensive. Their understanding, forged through personal tragedy and years of relentless pursuit, proved invaluable. The climax of the conflict involved a direct confrontation with Abeloth in her ancient prison within the Maul cluster, a place saturated with the dark side. It required a combination of immense force power, cunning strategy, and the courage to face an entity that defied conventional understanding. The Jedi learned that some threats could not be simply destroyed. They had to be contained, imprisoned, or neutralized through intricate manipulation of the Force itself. The struggle against Abeloth pushed the boundaries of Force knowledge and demonstrated the Jedi's capacity for immense power when united against a common, terrifying foe. The defeat of Abeloth and the containment of the lost tribe of the Sith, though arduous, brought a semblance of temporary stability back to the Force. However, events had irrevocably changed the galaxy and the Jedi Order. Luke Skywalker's exile eventually ended, but the experience had reshaped his perception of his role as Grand Master, teaching him harsh lessons about the dangers of centralized power and the pervasive nature of the dark side. Ben Skywalker emerged as a hardened, wise Jedi Knight forever, marked by his journey and his understanding of the Force's mysterious depths. The Jedi Order, while still rebuilding, was now more resilient, more adaptable, acutely aware of the unpredictable and ancient evils that lurked within and beyond the known universe. The period of the Lost Tribe and Abeloth underscored that the galaxy's future would always be precarious. The threat of ancient Sith resurfacing, the rise of powerful, chaotic Force entities, and the insidious corruption of the dark side were constant dangers. The seeds of new dark side movements, like the secretly growing one Sith under Darth Krayt, lay dormant, feeding on a lingering instability, waiting for their own moment to emerge. The Jedi, having faced the unknown and battled madness itself, understood that their vigil was eternal, and that the fate of the galaxy often rested on their ability to navigate the complex, fracturing currents of the Force, forever standing as the last bastion against the pervasive shadows of the past and the terrifying uncertainties of the future. Chapter 10. Legacy, the future written in blood. More than a century and a quarter had passed since the climactic battle of Endor, an era marked by galactic rebuilding, the ebb and flow of political power, and the quiet vigilance of the Jedi Order. The Galactic Alliance, forged in the fires of the Yuuzhan Vong War, had slowly transitioned over generations into a new form of governance, influenced by a restored, benevolent imperial lineage, the Fel Empire. This was not the tyranny of Palpatine, but an imperial state reformed, committed to order and justice, and surprisingly, in alliance with the re-established Jedi Order. A fragile, yet enduring, peace seemed to have settled over the galaxy. However, underneath this veneer of stability, an ancient evil had been patiently cultivating its power, its tendrils reaching out from the deepest shadows, preparing for an ultimate strike that would redefine the very nature of galactic power and the Force itself. This insidious threat was the one Sith, a dark side order unlike any that had come before. They rejected the ancient rule of two, believing it led to unnecessary infighting and ultimately limited their power. Instead, the one Sith embraced a philosophy of absolute unity under a single, supreme Dark Lord, with all others serving as loyal extensions of his will. Their goal was not just conquest, but eternal, unquestioned rule over the entire galaxy, reshaping it according to their own twisted vision. Their power was not derived from secret manipulations, but from overt control, ruthlessly enforced by a vast legion of darkside adepts. At the head of this terrifying new order stood Darth Krayt, a figure whose past was as complex and tragic as the galaxy he sought to dominate. He was once a Jedi Master named Asherad Het, a skilled human Jedi Knight who had fought bravely in the Clone Wars. He had survived Order 66, endured years of brutal survival in the Outer Rim, and even confronted the remnants of the ancient Sith, including their spirit on Korriban. His experiences had shattered his faith in the Jedi path and twisted his perception of the Force. He believed that the galaxy needed a strong hand, a unified will to prevent endless cycles of chaos and war. He saw himself as the one true savior, destined to impose absolute order through the dark side, forging a new Sith empire that would never fall. Krayt spent decades secretly gathering Force sensitives, training them in his brutal philosophy, and building his one Sith into a formidable, disciplined army of Darksiders. They established hidden fortresses, infiltrated existing galactic institutions, and waited for the opportune moment to strike. Their patience was absolute, their planning meticulous, and their ruthlessness unmatched. While the Galactic Alliance and the Fel Empire enjoyed their relative peace, the one Sith quietly accumulated power, a dark storm brewing on the horizon. The unsuspecting Fel Empire, which had ushered in an era of order and cooperation with the Jedi, was about to face the ultimate betrayal. The one Sith, having infiltrated key positions within the government and military, launched a sudden, devastating offensive that caught the galaxy entirely by surprise. Their plan was not merely to defeat the Fel Empire, but to utterly collapse the Fel Empire and achieve total galactic domination through betrayal by the Sith from within. The Jedi, though allied with the Fel Empire, were scattered and unprepared for the sheer scale and coordinated brutality of the one Sith's assault. The collapse of the Fel Empire was swift and brutal, a horrifying spectacle of treachery and overwhelming darkside power. The one Sith launched a devastating surprise attack on key Imperial worlds, particularly targeting Jedi temples and strategic strongholds. The infamous siege of Aziz, a planet sacred to the Jedi for millennia, became a symbol of this cataclysm. The Jedi, caught off guard, fought valiantly, but were overwhelmed by the sheer numbers of the one Sith and the ferocity of Darth Krayt's dark side warriors. Many Jedi fell, their ancient temples desecrated, and their knowledge plundered. The alliance between the Fel Empire and the Jedi, once a beacon of hope, crumbled under the weight of this overwhelming assault. With the Fel Empire fractured and the Jedi decimated, the Jedi were scattered and the galaxy plunged into chaos. Surviving Jedi Knights and Masters were forced into hiding, hunted relentlessly by Darth Krayt's forces. The dream of a rebuilt Jedi Order, nurtured for over a century, seemed to be extinguished in a single, devastating stroke. Alliance, which had been gradually subsumed by the Fel Empire, now found itself facing a tyrannical power far more absolute than Palpatine's, with no viable resistance force to protect its citizens. Darth Krayt declared himself Galactic Emperor, imposing his will through brutal force and pervasive fear in this grim new reality. One name resonated with a haunting legacy: Skywalker. And yet, the reluctant heir to this legendary name was perhaps the least likely hero. Cade Skywalker, a direct descendant of Luke Skywalker in the Solo family line, was a far cry from his illustrious ancestors. He was a deeply troubled young man, haunted by a past he desperately tried to escape. After witnessing the slaughter of his Jedi Master and many friends during the siege of Aziz, Cade had abandoned the Force, choosing a life as a rough, cynical bounty hunter. He medicated his Force abilities with powerful stimulants, trying to suppress the painful echoes of the past and the expectations of his lineage. Cade despised the Force, blamed it for all the suffering he had endured, and rejected his destiny. As a Jedi, he wanted nothing to do with a war against the one Sith, preferring to drift through the galaxy, taking jobs and living for himself. However, fate and the persistent efforts of his loyal allies and remaining Jedi continually pulled him back into the struggle. Despite his resistance, The Force flowed strongly within him, and his unique heritage meant he was often the target of Darth Krayt, who sought to either corrupt him to his cause or destroy him as a potential threat. Krayt believed that controlling or eliminating the Skywalker's bloodline was essential for his eternal rule. The one Sith and their plan for eternal rule was now fully implemented. Under Darth Krayt's iron fist, the galaxy was subjected to a chillingly efficient tyranny. Krayt established a network of loyal Sith Lords and Dark Jedi, each commanding legions of stormtroopers and holding absolute power over their assigned sectors. Dissent was crushed mercilessly, and even the slightest hint of rebellion was met with overwhelming force. Their plan was not just about establishing a new empire, but about creating a permanent, challengeable galactic order, free from the cycles of rebellion and collapse that had defined history. Krayt believed that his unified Sith order, unburdened by the rule of two, was the ultimate stable form of governance. The reign of Darth Krayt and the one Sith plunged the galaxy into its deepest period of despair since the darkest days of Palpatine's empire. Worlds were subjugated, freedoms were crushed, and a pervasive fear settled over the populace. The very concept of hope seemed to wither under the weight of the one Sith's omnipresent dark side influence. Krayt, twisted by his agonizing personal history and decades of cultivating dark side power, ruled with an absolute conviction in his own righteousness. He genuinely believed that his brutal methods were necessary for the galaxy's ultimate salvation, a twisted reflection of his past Jedi ideals. Amidst this overwhelming darkness, the scattered Jedi maintained a desperate, clandestine resistance, operating from hidden bases and relying on a network of sympathetic allies. They worked to rescue Force sensitives, preserve ancient Jedi knowledge, and inspire acts of defiance against the one Sith. Figures like Master Cole Skywalker, an earlier ancestor of Cade's, and later the remnants of the Jedi High Council, valiantly tried to organize a counterattack, but their numbers were few and their resources limited. Their struggle was one of survival, fiercely guarding the last embers of light in a galaxy consumed by shadow. Cade Skywalker, despite his profound reluctance, found himself increasingly drawn into this resistance. His unique ability to use the Force to heal, a rare and powerful gift, made him invaluable, even as he resented its demands. He carried the weight of his lineage, not as a source of pride, but as a heavy burden. He clashed repeatedly with Darth Krayt and his Sith Lords, not out of a sense of Jedi duty, but often out of personal vendetta, seeking revenge for those he had lost. His journey was a tumultuous one, marked by repeated brushes with the dark side, as Krayt sought to corrupt him, believing Cade's immense power would be a perfect tool for his. One Sith, Krayt's plan for eternal rule was not merely theoretical, it was actively being enforced. He sought to eliminate any potential threats, including the very idea of a free galaxy. He used advanced technology and pervasive Force techniques to monitor and control populations. His Sith Lords were granted immense authority, acting as enforcers of his will. The galaxy became a vast, interconnected prison with the one Sith as its unchallengeable wardens. The cultural and social norms of countless worlds were systematically dismantled, replaced by the rigid doctrines of Krayt's new order. The internal struggles within Cade Skywalker were as intense as the external war against the one Sith. He wrestled constantly with his inherited predisposition to the dark side, a painful legacy from his direct ancestor, Darth Vader. He utilized dark side powers when he deemed it necessary for survival or to achieve a goal. Yet, he always ultimately resisted succumbing completely, pulling himself back from the precipice through sheer force of will and the desperate love he held for his few remaining friends and family. He was a chaotic, unpredictable force, a true maverick, embodying both the light and the dark, yet ultimately choosing to fight for freedom. His internal conflict mirrored the galaxy's struggle for its soul. The stage was set for the final battle between Cade and Crate. The galaxy, battered and bruised, looked to its unlikely hero. Cade, having finally embraced his destiny not as a conventional Jedi, but as a unique instrument of the Force, confronted the tyrannical Darth Crate. This was not just a duel for personal vengeance, it was a climactic confrontation for the very soul of the galaxy, a final, desperate attempt to break the one Sith's eternal rule. The fight would determine whether hope could truly survive in a galaxy steeped in so much darkness. The confrontation took place in a setting as grand and symbolic as their personal struggle. Darth Crate, fully embracing his identity as an emperor, faced Cade Skywalker, the embodiment of a lineage that repeatedly rose to challenge tyranny. Their duel was a devastating display of raw force power and lightsaber mastery. Crate, ancient and deeply steeped in the dark side, unleashed every terrifying power at his command, attempting to crush Cade with the weight of his own despair and his family's painful legacy. Cade, fueled by a chaotic mix of anger, defiance, and a grudging sense of justice, met Crate's fury with an unpredictable, unorthodox fighting style, drawing on both his light and dark side impulses without succumbing to either in a brutal, prolonged engagement. Cade Skywalker ultimately triumphed. He used his unique healing abilities not just for others, but for himself, pushing his body and his connection to the Force to their absolute limits. He exploited Crate's overconfidence and his own unique connection to the Force, honed by years of struggle and self-hatred. The defeat of Darth Crate marked a pivotal moment, a shattering blow to the one Sith's aspirations for eternal rule. His empire fractured, its power base undermined, and its reign of terror began to unravel. Though the scars of their rule would linger for generations, the end of Darth Crate's tyranny brought a new era of reconstruction and a cautious return to galactic self-determination. The surviving Jedi began the arduous task of rebuilding their order once more, having learned invaluable lessons from their near annihilation. Cade Skywalker, having fulfilled his destiny, once again retreated from the spotlight, his path remaining his own, choosing to live on the fringes, forever the reluctant hero. He had played his part in turning the tide against the darkness, but he was no Grand Master, no symbol of a reborn order. He was simply Cade, the Skywalker who had saved the galaxy in his own messy, unconventional way. And so, the end of the Skywalker line, or is it, with Cade Skywalker choosing a path outside the traditional Jedi order? The fate of the powerful Force-sensitive lineage that had shaped galactic history for centuries became ambiguous. Would new Skywalker descendants eventually emerge, once again drawn into the eternal struggle of the Force? Or would the legacy simply fade, having served its purpose in delivering the galaxy from the darkest of tyrannies? The future remained unwritten, a testament to the fact that even after grand conflicts and the fall of empires, the story of the galaxy and the Force that binds it continues to unfold, forever evolving, forever pushing towards an uncertain dawn. From the nascent days of the New Republic, rising from the ashes of tyranny through the strategic brilliance of Grand Admiral Thrawn, the horrifying returns of galactic emperors and ancient dark side powers, to the existential terror of extragalactic invaders and the tragic fall of a Skywalker to the deepest shadows, the Star Wars Legends saga unfurls a sprawling, epic tapestry. It's a chronicle of relentless struggle between light and dark, testament to the enduring resilience of the Jedi, and a powerful narrative of a galaxy forever shaped by heroism, sacrifice, and the unbreakable spirit of freedom. Across countless stars and through generations of conflict and peace, its legacy reminds us that while darkness may rise, the Force always seeks balance. In the fight for hope, though eternally challenging, will never truly end.